Chapter 869. In addition to the people of the Shenluo Empire, there were also many enemies of Long Yu gathered in the holy city of the Five Emperors, such as a large group of martial cultivators from the Cloud Empire. Unlike the Shenluo Empire, the hatred between the Shenluo Empire and Long Yu was unforgettable. Although they courted death themselves, they certainly would not admit that it was their fault. Even if they were wrong, the big mistake had already been made. Only by killing Long Yu would it be over. The hatred between the Cloud Empire and Long Yu is similar to that of Emperor Tianqin. Emperor Yunduan's third and second sons both died in the hands of Long Yu. The third son died a long time ago. After investigating for a long time, he found out that it was Long Yu. He wanted to come and take revenge, but was stopped by Yu Hanxin. Unexpectedly, not long after, the second son, Yin Chushui, died in the hands of Long Yu in the North Snow Empire. Emperor Yundu naturally wanted to kill Long Yu as soon as possible. Therefore, he had prepared for a long time for this strongest king realm competition. For these things, Long Yu was very clear in his heart. In the competition, he would definitely encounter many of his old enemies, but even Long Yu did not expect that he would encounter so many enemies. Corresponding to these people, of course, many of Long Yu's friends also came. The whole Longgui Empire felt extremely happy now. Why? Because the 12 nests of the winged god race that had troubled them for many years were finally destroyed by the alliance of 5 emperors. It was said that the plan to destroy the 12 nests of the winged god race was proposed by Long Yu after his exploration. The alliance of 5 emperors did not lose any people and destroyed the 12 nests of the winged god race. It could be seen that the plan proposed by Long Yu was very detailed. Dragon Return Empire's Prime Minister Hung Yi, General Zhang Tianyuan, and the Great Elder, the white-haired old man, had personally witnessed Long Yu go berserk in the face of battle and ultimately kill the Dark Shadow Pavilion's young master, who should have been impossible to kill. Long Yu naturally regarded Long Yu as a friend. Other than the people from the Dragon Returning Empire, there were also people from the North Snow Dynasty. It was their first time coming to the holy city of the 5 emperors, which surprised everyone. The people of the North Snow Dynasty were divided into 2 groups. One group was centered around the Heavenly Mandate Manor and the Azura Manor. Some forces were closer to Long Yu, such as the commander of the Snowdance Corps, Yushu, Duke Rashue of the Rashue Commandery, Sikong, the Duke's nephew, and so on. These were all friends of Long Yu. The other group consisted of people from the Snow Civet Manor, Fiend Manor, Spirit Flame Manor, Celestial Manor, and so on. It wasn't that these forces didn't want to be on good terms with Long Yu, but there was already conflict between them. Even if they tried to repair their relationship, it would be very difficult for them to enter Long Yu's circle, so they could only come alone. In short, the entire Shenwu world has been mobilized. More than half of the Emperor Realm cultivators have gathered at the holy city of the 5 emperors, waiting for the strongest king realm competition to begin. Everyone was waiting for the strongest king realm competition to begin. This was the beginning of this year's grand event. Moreover, many forces were paying close attention to the strongest king realm competition. After all, which force didn't have a junior from the Emperor Realm? Who didn't want to see their juniors shine in a competition of this scale? This was a grand event that everyone was paying attention to. In a grand event like this, the number of people who were paying attention to Long Yu wasn't that large. Although Long Yu was extremely famous in the holy city of the 5 emperors, in the entire Shenwu world, he wasn't much. Because the things that people in the Shenwu world paid attention to were naturally different. Most people only paid attention to the things around them, and the things that Long Yu had done before were still very far away from most people. But as long as Long Yu stood out in the strongest king realm competition, then the entire Shenwu world would know his name. This was why so many people came to participate and pay attention to this competition. The closer it was to the start of the strongest king realm competition, the fewer conflicts and disturbances in the holy city of the 5 emperors. Because most people had already found out what they wanted to know and were now nervously preparing. There were some people who wanted to use all the time they had to increase their own strength, but there were others who were considering other things. Just like those enemies of Long Yu, They were all thinking about how to get rid of Long Yu in the Strongest King Realm competition. But the interesting thing was, even as the Strongest King Realm competition was getting closer and closer, Long Yu still hadn't shown himself. In this past year, it was as if he had disappeared from the face of the earth. No one had even seen him once. Some people thought that Long Yu might have died while training outside, but others firmly believed that Long Yu couldn't have died and that his current strength must have reached a sky-high level. There were only 3 days left until the start of the Strongest King Realm competition. On such a day, even the 5 emperors had returned. In the holy city of the 5 emperors, this kind of occasion would definitely require the gathering of the 5 emperors, including the Saint Emperor who had been training outside. However, the crowd still couldn't see the 5 emperors right now. They could only wait until 3 days later, when the Strongest King Realm competition finally begins, to see the gathering of the 5 emperors. At this time, outside the Sacred Tower, countless people were queuing up, preparing to enter the Sacred Tower. Whether it was the Strongest King Realm competition, the Strongest Emperor Realm competition, or the Conclave of Gods and Martial Emperors, they were all held on the 10,000th floor of the Sacred Tower. That was a special space that could hold tens of millions of people. Even if there were hundreds of thousands of people participating in the competition, it could easily and quickly be arranged. As long as one was a King Path Mystic Realm expert, after registering with the Alliance of 5 Emperors, they could enter. Whether it was to participate in the Strongest King Realm competition or to watch the competition, they could enter the 10,000th floor of the Sacred Tower. That was the best platform that could hold so many people. Most importantly, that space was originally designed for large-scale competitions. Only in that space could the Strongest King Realm competition be held with more than 100,000 people participating. Qin Yashuang, Shu Chan, and the others were queuing up, preparing to enter the 10,000th floor of the Sacred Tower. The 2 women were a little nervous because Long Yu hadn't appeared yet. Could it be that Long Yu had forgotten the time? Shu Chan was a little better. She knew that Long Yu was in closed-door cultivation in the Azura Ancient Palace, but Qin Yashuang didn't know, so she had a lot of bad guesses in her heart. In Qin Yashuang's opinion, if Long Yu was in closed-door cultivation, the best place was the Star Spirit formation of the Sacred Tower. Since he wasn't there, he most likely went out to train. Otherwise, why hadn't there been any news for so long? There were only 3 days left until the Strongest King Realm competition, but Long Yu still hadn't returned. Could it be that he was delayed by something? You guys, don't worry. Even if young Master Long missed the Strongest King Realm competition, it's nothing. On the contrary, Zisu was more open-minded about it. She said casually, 1 year is enough for him to step into the Emperor Realm. Maybe he will return in a month and directly participate in the Strongest Emperor Realm competition. That's true. Shu Chan smiled and nodded. If he steps into the Emperor Realm, there's no need for him to participate in the Strongest King Realm competition. He has always been well-behaved. We don't need to worry about him. It's better to worry about ourselves. Qin Yashuang nodded silently. Now, whether it was Qin Yashuang, Zisu, or Shu Chan, they had all stepped into the later stage of the King Realm. They all wanted to participate in the Strongest King Realm competition. They wanted to know what level their strength had reached. Soon it was their turn. Together with the heavenly Mandate Manor, Shura Manor, and some people from the North Snow Dynasty who were close to Long Yu, they stepped into the Sacred Tower. Under the guidance of the members of the Alliance of 5 Emperors, they were directly transported to the 10,000th floor of the Sacred Tower. This place was called 10,000 Layers of Space. It was not only because this space was located on the 10,000th floor of the Sacred Tower, but also because this space originally had 10,000 floors. The top and bottom floors were all floors for spectators, and all the floors in between were floors for competition. Even Qin Yashuang, who grew up in the sacred city of the 5 Emperors, came here for the first time. Because during the last Strongest King Realm competition, she hadn't stepped into the King Realm yet. Of course, she wasn't qualified to come here. At this time, she came with Shu Chan and the others. They only felt their eyes light up, and all of them came to a large courtyard with pavilions and flowers. This courtyard was one of the courtyards on the spectator floor of the 10,000 layers of space. There were hundreds of thousands of courtyards like this in the 10,000 layers of space, and each courtyard was enough to accommodate hundreds of people. Every person from every force who came here would be arranged to live in a courtyard like this. Because the entire Strongest King Realm competition would last for a month, everyone would spend this month in this courtyard. So, of course, there would be excellent accommodation and a place to watch the battle. The courtyard was very large. The whole courtyard seemed to be built on a floating island in the void, and the floating island was surrounded by a pitch-black void. Nothing could be seen in the void, and the end could not be seen. I've been here before. Yu Shiwu, the commander of the Snowdance Corps from the North Snow Dynasty, came to the side of Qin Yashuang and Shuchan. She smiled slightly and said, "In this courtyard, both food and necessities are well prepared. It's enough for us to use for a month. As for the pitch-black void around the courtyard, it's a spectator area." Spectator area? Is the Strongest King Realm competition going to be fought in the void? Qin Yashuang felt a little strange. No. Yu Shiwu shook her head and said, "The fighting area is on another level of the 10,000 layers of space. At that time, as long as we look into this pitch-black void, we can see a lot of people fighting in real time. After all, there are too many strong people participating in the Strongest King Realm competition. It's impossible to watch one fight at a time. At that time, if you want to watch someone's fight, you can enter it through the King's Life Tablet." King's Life Tablet? It was another word that she didn't understand. So, Shu Chan asked directly, "When the Strongest King Realm competition starts, everyone will get a King's Life Tablet with their name recorded in it. This King's Life Tablet is your identity certificate in the 10,000 layers of space." Chapter 870. The King's Life Tablet is the universal proof of identity for this Grand Meet. No matter King Realm, Emperor Realm, or even Monarch Realm, everyone will receive a King's Life Tablet after the Grand Meet begins. This is a special Jade tag. The King's Life Tablet represents the cultivator's identity and can be used to place bets, enter and exit the 10,000 floors, and save one's life during the competition. The King's Life Tablet is the foundation for the entire Grand Meet to continue smoothly and orderly. The Alliance of 5 Emperors has given 3 days for all participating combatants to enter the 10,000 floors of the Sacred Tower. Not only can the cultivators who enter first enjoy delicious food and beautiful scenery, they can also enjoy the cultivation formations. Although it's not as effective as the Astral Spirit formation, it's at least 70 to 80% as effective. This is also the reason why so many people come to participate in this Grand Meet. The Strongest King Realm, Emperor Realm, and God Emperor Realm will all be here for 3 months. During these 3 months, one's cultivation speed will increase by 70 to 80 times. A chance like this is extremely precious for normal cultivators. As time passed, the Grand Meet is getting closer and closer. Over 1 million people have already entered the 10,000 floors of the Sacred Tower, each resting in one of the courtyards within the 10,000 floors to prepare. All the courtyards within the 10,000 floors of the Sacred Tower are separated from each other, so it's possible to go to other courtyards, but that has to wait until the Grand Meet begins and they've obtained their King's Life Tablet. Although 1 million King's Life Tablets sounds very shocking, in reality, this number isn't that scary. How many people are there in Shenwu World? It's definitely innumerable. After all, Heavenly Mandate Island alone has a population of over 10 billion, and there are 108,000 floating islands similar to Heavenly Mandate Island in Shenwu World. Not to mention, even the population of 108,000 floating islands probably doesn't even amount to 1% of the total population of Shenwu World. If that's the case, the number of 1 million King's Life Tablets is minuscule. From this, it can be seen that in Shenwu World, it's not easy for a cultivator to reach the secret realm of the King's Path. For example, in North Snow Kingdom, there are tens of millions of cultivators, but less than 1,000 have reached the King Realm. The majority of cultivators will be stuck at the secret realm. First of all, it's because a world seed is hard to come by. And secondly, there's a limit of resources. For example, Eldarin, who was saved by Long Yu, couldn't make a world seed explode and form an inner world in his entire life. But in the end, Long Yu gave him a chance. All the cultivators who were able to make it to the 10,000 floors of the Sacred Tower were the cream of the crop of Shunwu world. Even if he was merely a cultivator at the initial stage of the King Realm, he had distinguished himself from countless others, and it was extremely difficult for him to come here. The Heavenly Mandate Manor, Azura Manor, and other forces close to Long Yu were all assigned to a courtyard. Among them, there were more than 10 people from the Heavenly Mandate Manor, including the 4 members of the Crack 2 squad, Fenyu Xian, Feng Xiaofei, and Feng Haofeng, as well as Man Xian, Chihua, Mei Yulin, Yin Huanma, Lu Yuan, and Liao Lele. Although Long Yu provided a lot of cultivation resources, the foundation of the Heavenly Mandate Manor was too poor. In this year, there were not many people who could enter the King Plain. As for Hong Yu, Ziling, Qiyun, and Eldarin, although they'd all stepped into the King Realm, they'd chosen to guard the Heavenly Mandate Manor to prevent any accidents from occurring. There were also many people from Azura Manor. Apart from Shu Chan, the people who were originally Shu Chan subordinates were all here. Among them, Shu Chan had already become a cultivator at the later stage of the King Realm, and Duguijian had also stepped into the intermediate stage of the King Realm. Xingwu, Jia Banxian, Xiao Zhu, Shuyan, and Rinping Fan were also at the initial stage of the King Realm. There was no need for those in the early stage of the King Realm to participate in the competition for the strongest King Realm, because it was very likely that they'd be eliminated without even winning a single match, and they'd have to pay a large sum of money. There was no need for that, and they'd only come to broaden their horizons. Now that they discovered that there was a large-scale cultivation matrix in the courtyard, which could increase the cultivation speed of hundreds of people by 70 to 80 times, everyone was immediately excited. It seemed that this trip was not a waste. On the other hand, Jiang Yixing, who'd always liked Shu Chan, was now at the intermediate stage of the King Realm, and he'd also chosen to participate in the competition for the strongest King Realm. In addition, there were also Sohan's Han and Yu Qingsha, who were also at the intermediate stage of the King Realm. Sohan's Han and Yu Qingsha's martial arts talent was still a little worse than Shu Chan's. In addition, Shu Chan had been cultivating in the sacred city of the 5 emperors for the past year, so it was normal that her cultivation speed was faster than the 2 of them. To be honest, it was already very good that Sohan's Han and Yu Qingsha could step into the intermediate stage of the King Realm now, and it was all thanks to Long Yu. After all, Long Yu had brought back half of the cultivation resources of the entire Dark Shadow Pavilion for Heavenly Mandate Manor and Azura Manor, which was not a small number. In this courtyard, Heavenly Mandate Manor and Azura Manor were the core, but they weren't the strongest forces. For example, the commander of the Snowdance Corps, Yu Shiwu, had reached the intermediate stage of the Emperor Realm. She was definitely stronger than everyone else in Heavenly Mandate Manor and Azura Manor. However, the hundreds of people in this courtyard were connected by Heavenly Mandate Manor and Azura Manor. The forces, including the Snowdance Corps, had received many benefits because they were on good terms with Long Yu, including the Tian Shu Qi guiding technique of Desolation level upper grade. They had also traded. Yu Shiwu had bought the cultivation method of Tian Shu Qi guiding technique from Heavenly Mandate Manor in her own name. Other people were almost the same. They were all on good terms with Heavenly Mandate Manor. Heavenly Mandate Manor wasn't very strong now, but its cultivation resources were extremely rich, far more than any other force in the North Snow Dynasty. Moreover, they had a strong background. It could be foreseen that they would develop very quickly in the future. It wouldn't do any harm to be on good terms with Heavenly Mandate Manor. In addition to Yu Shiwu, the other 3 commanders of the 4 major legions of the North Snow Dynasty had all come. They were all on the side of Heavenly Mandate Manor, not with other forces. The commanders of the 4 major legions, including Yu Shiwu, were all in the middle stage of the Emperor Realm. However, the 4 of them were very respectful to Qin Yashuang, Shu Chan, and the others. I just don't know where Long Yu is now. Now, many people in this courtyard had the same thought. 3 days passed quickly. Just a moment before the opening, many uninvited guests suddenly came to the courtyard where Heavenly Mandate Manor was located, which surprised everyone. Didn't they say that no one was allowed to enter before the opening? However, after seeing who it was, everyone was relieved, because it was not someone else, but the little girl Shi Yingwu, who had disappeared for a long time like Long Yu, as well as the other 7 members of the Death Corps. Fengyu Xian, Feng Xiaofei, and Feng Haofeng came out together to welcome them. As soon as they saw Shi Yingwu and the 7 people, they were shocked. You are all in the late stage of the King realm. The 3 siblings were almost dumbfounded. What kind of cultivation speed was this? They had only disappeared for a year, and now all 8 of them were in the late stage of the King realm. This was really scary. Among the 3 siblings, except for Fengyu Xian, Feng Xiaofei, and Feng Haofeng, who were in the late stage of the King realm, were only in the middle stage of the King realm. Although they had participated in the competition of the strongest King realm, they did not have much chance of winning. Yes, Shi Yingwu nodded slightly with a smile on her face. In the past year, the Death Envoy had personally trained them. Not only did he help them improve their martial arts realms rapidly, but he also taught them many things, especially Shi Yingwu. The Death Envoy liked her very much, and he took her as his disciple directly. At this moment, the 8 people brought by Shi Yingwu were all very powerful, because they had even taken some of the precious elixirs that the Death Envoy had collected. However, in the past year, Shi Yingwu and the others had also suffered a lot. The most terrifying thing was that they had to cultivate the dead realm. Since the 8 of them had comprehended the divine text of death at the origin level, the Death Envoy naturally would not let them go. He taught them the cultivation method of the dead realm, and made them experience 2 rounds of 14 fake deaths, just like Long Yu. Even though the 8 of them possessed very strong willpower, they were still somewhat lacking when compared to Long Yu. Thus, when cultivating the death state body refining technique, they encountered many bumps along the way. In fact, every single one of them had nearly died in the process. In the end, although they had cultivated to the small success level, they were still a lot weaker than Long Yu. Regarding this, the Death Envoy was not disappointed. He knew very well how difficult it was to cultivate the dead realm, and it was already not easy for the 8 of them to endure it. Big Brother Xiaofei, Big Brother Haofeng, why haven't you reached the late-stage king stage? Shi Yingwu saw Feng Xiaofei and Feng Haofeng at a glance. Seeing that they were only in the mid-stage king stage, she chuckled. Big Brother Long asked me to come over and take a look. If you haven't reached the late-stage king stage, take these things. After saying that, Shi Yingwu took out a pile of cultivation resources. It turned out to be a large pile of desolate grade, ancient grade elixirs, and many special beast crystals. This made Feng Xiaofei and Feng Haofeng's eyes light up. So many cultivation resources. Although they had worked very hard in the past year, they still did not have enough cultivation resources. Even with the Star Soul formation, it was still very slow compared to Long Yu's violent method of cultivation. But now, Long Yu gave them a pile of cultivation resources, and they felt that they owed Long Yu even more. However, since it was Long Yu who wanted to give it to them, they naturally wouldn't refuse. They were very clear that if their own martial arts realm became stronger, it would make Long Yu feel more at ease. It would also allow him to walk further with peace of mind. Thank you very much. Feng Xiaofei and Feng Haofeng said seriously. We're all on the same side. Don't stand on ceremony. Shi Yingwu shook her head and asked with a smile, by the way, Big Brother Long also asked me to ask if Big Sister Lele has a way to refine the body-refining elixir made from the ancient dragon and elephant bones. Hearing this question, Fengyu Xian nodded confidently and answered with a smile. She has been working hard recently and has collected all the materials. She will definitely be able to refine the elixir by the end of this month. It will at least be an ancient grade elixir. After all, the effect of her misery sea cauldron is too powerful. Although she is only in the early stage king stage, she has already successfully refined an ancient grade elixir. By the way, Xiao Wu, you said that Big Brother Long asked you to come. Where is he now? Fengyu Xian asked curiously. Chapter 871. Of course, Shi Yingwu knew where Long Yu was. She smiled and said, "Brother Long should be with the Red Emperor now." Her words silenced Feng Yusin and her siblings. That's right, Big Brother Long Yu is now the direct disciple of the Scarlet Emperor. Before the start of the strongest King Realm competition, he naturally has to be with the Scarlet Emperor. Now, Brother Long Yu had surpassed their current level. Brother Long Yu's friends were probably at the level of the Red Emperor's personal disciple, or Yu Hanxin's level. Although Feng Yusin and her siblings had expected this, they were still disappointed that Long Yu didn't come to see them. Shi Yingwu looked at their expressions and found it funny. She said, "What are you thinking? Brother Long is only going to see the Red Emperor, and then he will come back. At that time, he will watch the competition with us. Don't worry." Hearing this, Feng Yusin and her siblings' gloomy expressions were all gone. So that was it. It seemed that they had misunderstood Brother Long Yu. In this way, everyone was in a good mood because they would be able to see Long Yu soon. They wanted to know what realm Long Yu was at now. Let's go and inform everyone to come out and welcome Brother Long Yu. Feng Yusin was very happy. She turned around and ran to other places in the courtyard to inform the others. The news of Long Yu's arrival made the atmosphere in the courtyard warm up. Right now, who in this courtyard hadn't received Long Yu's grace? Not one. All four commanders, including Yu Shiwu, had cultivated the Dubhe Qi channeling technique, even though they were middle-stage Emperor Realm cultivators. Long Yu had fought with all his might to obtain the Dubhe Qi channeling technique from the Scarlet Emperor's illusion. It was conceivable that if the Dubhe Qi drawing Jade Slip had fallen into the hands of other forces, such as the Silver Fox Manor where the Silver Fox King resided, or the Sky Path Manor where Jing Tianxing resided, these two forces would definitely not have handed over the Dubhe Qi drawing Jade Slip to outsiders. The so-called outsiders were the people in the circle of the North Snow Imperial City. As for the four legions, they wouldn't get the Dubhe Qi guiding technique no matter what price they paid. Therefore, Yu Shiwu and the other three commanders admired Long Yu very much. Although Long Yu's realm was lower than theirs, and Long Yu was the Red Emperor's personal disciple, they treated Long Yu as another Yu Hanxin. In front of Yu Hanxin, their only choice was to follow orders. Therefore, in front of Long Yu, they would do the same. Not long after, hundreds of people gathered in the courtyard and came to the garden in the center of the courtyard. They chatted while waiting for Long Yu's arrival. Their words were full of expectation. After all, they hadn't seen Long Yu for a long time. They couldn't wait to know what realm Long Yu had reached now. Yu Shiwu smiled and said, "Even if Long Yu has surpassed me and reached the late stage of the Emperor realm, I wouldn't be surprised at all." Master Yu Hanxin's rise was exactly like this. Even the word soaring isn't enough to describe it. "I'm afraid Commander Shiwu has guessed wrong." Shi Yingwu covered her mouth and giggled. "Don't be disappointed later. Oh, Brother Long is here, and Master Yu Hanxin is with him." In fact, before she said this, the people in the garden had already seen two figures suddenly appear in the middle of the garden. Long Yu, Yu Hanxin, the two of them actually came together. Everyone only took a glance at them, and they were immediately stunned, because they discovered that Long Yu's cultivation was only at the late King realm, and Yu Hanxin's cultivation was only at the late Emperor realm. Their cultivations didn't change much. Could it be that they were going to participate in the competition between the strongest Emperor realm and King realm? Everyone thought, but with Long Yu's talent, it would be a pity if he was only a king in the strongest Emperor realm. Everyone thought that Long Yu could also get a place in the strongest Emperor realm. Otherwise, how could Long Yu face the three battles after the end of the martial god meeting? Greetings, Master Yu, Master Long. Many cultivators of the four major armies, including Yu Shiwu, squatted down and saluted Yu Hanxin and Long Yu. There was no doubt that the two's identity was very special. It was because of the two that the North Snow Empire had the possibility to develop quickly and improve their personal strength. Yu Hanxin was used to this, but Long Yu was not used to it. He cultivated in seclusion for an entire year. During this year, other than the Death Envoy, Sunset Dance, and the others, he almost didn't see anyone else. The reason why he said it was almost was because after he broke through to the late stage of the King realm, he put the tens of thousands of Ice God clan beasts and the 10 Emperor Realm Holy Garden Guards into his inner world. He could be considered to have seen the 10 Emperor Realm Holy Garden Guards. Unfortunately, all 10 of them were sealed in Long Yu's inner world and became the providers of Long Yu's inner world. How strong was Long Yu at the moment? Even Long Yu himself didn't know. He was also looking forward to the competition of the strongest king realm. The most important thing was to familiarize himself with the various techniques he had cultivated. He didn't expect that when he saw the people of the North Snow Empire again, they would salute him and call him Master Long. Long Yu swept his gaze across the crowd. He could feel the power of the Dubhe stars from the bodies of everyone present. He immediately understood. So it turned out that everyone had cultivated the Dubhe Chi drawing technique. No wonder such a situation had occurred. Don't stand on ceremony, everyone. The 5 emperors have gathered. The grand event will start soon. Yu Hanxin smiled and waved her hand. Everyone, do your best in the competition of the strongest king realm next month. We still have many late emperor realm experts here. If you can get a higher ranking, the 5 emperors will reward you a lot. As soon as Yu Hanxin spoke, the slightly tense atmosphere in the surroundings immediately dissipated. Long Yu saw so many friends that he hadn't seen for a long time. He smiled and walked up to them. He was in a good mood to be able to participate in such a grand event with his friends. Yusin, you have reached the late stage of the king realm. Not bad, not bad. You have to do your best in the competition of the strongest king realm. Long Yu saw Fenyu Xin at first glance. With the combat weapon that Brother Long gave me, I won't lose so quickly. Fenyu Xin said shyly. Xiaofei, Haofeng, you two are still in the middle stage of the king realm. Didn't I tell you to hurry up and cultivate to reach the late stage of the king realm? Long Yu turned his head and saw the 2 brothers, Feng Xiaofei and Feng Haofeng, standing there with a silly smile. He couldn't help but knock their heads. We haven't seen Brother Long for a long time. We want to go and cultivate after we see him. Feng Xiaofei scratched the back of his head and said with a smile, You see him now? Then hurry up and go. The competition of the strongest king realm is about to begin. As long as you absorb these elixirs, you should be able to reach the late stage of the king realm. At that time, you will have a better chance of winning. Long Yu said solemnly, the rewards for the top 1,000 in this competition are not bad. You all have to fight for it. You all still have one night's time. Wait for the grand meeting to begin. The competition for the strongest king realm will begin early tomorrow morning. You all have to hurry up. Yes. Feng Xiaofei and Feng Haofeng didn't dare to delay when they heard Long Yu's words. They turned around and started cultivating. Long Yu looked at the others. Among the 4 members of the Crack 2 squad, Gu Yixin was still in the late stage of the king realm. Gu Wenshan, Qiao Ziying, and Nan Meningxiao were in the middle stage of the king realm. Man Xin, Qi Hua, and Hua Mei were in the late stage of the king realm. Yi Luan, Yan Huan, Mo, and Lu Yuan were in the middle stage of the king realm. Liao Lele was only in the early stage of the king realm. But it didn't matter. Liao Lele's main occupation was alchemy. The competition of the strongest king realm was not attractive to her. Brother Yiluan, Elder Yin, Lu Yuan, you can also cultivate with Xiaofei and Haofeng. The cultivation conditions in the 10,000 layer space are not bad. You might be able to reach the late stage of the king realm. Long Yu said to Yi Luan, Yan Huan, and Lu Yuan. The 3 of them were looking forward to the competition of the strongest king realm. It was just that they hadn't been able to break through to the late stage of the king realm because they needed too much heaven and earth energy. But now, with Long Yu's return and a pile of precious cultivation resources, they had a chance to break through. Yan Huan was wearing a black dress. She was confused by Long Yu's way of addressing her. Why are you still calling me Elder Yin after so long? I'm not an elder anymore. My bad. Long Yu hurriedly smiled and corrected himself. Sister Yin, if you reach the late stage of the king realm, you will be able to fight in the competition of the strongest king realm. You still have one night. Do your best. Yan Huanma smiled. She didn't really care about how Long Yu addressed her, but she always felt that the title of Elder Yin was quite strange. Now that Long Yu had corrected himself, she knew that Long Yu's personality was still very peaceful. He wasn't the kind of person who would become cold after becoming powerful. Guan Shan, Qiao Xing, and Nanmen Ingxia, who were also in the middle stage of the King realm, were also called by Long Yu to cultivate. After all, they were Long Yu's cultivation resources. If Long Yu didn't say anything, they wouldn't dare to use them. Fortunately, Long Yu still took care of everyone in the heavenly mandate manner. As for the people of the Shura manor, Long Yu also told them that those who wanted to cultivate could go together. After all, he had brought back quite a lot of cultivation resources this time. It was enough to satisfy so many people. Before Long Yu returned, he asked Shi Yingwu to accept a mission from the Alliance of Five Emperors to annihilate a bandit group. Then, she went and wiped out the bandit group. That was why she obtained so many cultivation resources. Although they couldn't compare to those in the Dark Shadow Pavilion, they were still worth tens of millions of Shinbi. It was quite good. The bandit group's strongest was just an ordinary late-stage Emperor Realm cultivator. He was killed by Long Yu with a sneak attack. After killing the leader, the rest was much simpler. While everyone was cultivating, preparing, and chatting, the grand event that affected the entire Shenwu world was finally about to begin. Chapter 872. The Gathering of the Five Emperors was a scene that even Long Yu had never seen before. Before this, he had seen the Red Emperor, the Lei Emperor, the Demon Emperor, and the Flame Emperor, but never the Saint Emperor. Rumors say that the Saint Emperor is a woman, but Long Yu hasn't seen her before. At this time, everyone was gathered in the garden of the courtyard. Looking into the void of space in front of them, they saw the projection of 5 dignified figures. They were the 5 emperors. Of course, Long Yu first looked at the white-robed woman in the center. Just by looking at her face, he was shocked. He didn't think the Saint Emperor would be this young. She must only be around 20 years old, right? But in reality, everyone knows that the Saint Emperor is already 300 years old this year. The reason why she still looks like she's 20 years old is because her martial arts realm is improving too quickly, causing her age to change very slowly. Aside from that, the Saint Emperor is a woman, and the most powerful woman in Shenwu world at that, so of course she can get her hands on quite a few pills to maintain her youthful appearance. So it's not strange for her to maintain her 20 years old appearance. The appearance of the 5 emperors signified the beginning of this series of events. The Saint Emperor's snow-white hair fluttered in the wind. Her eyes seemed to contain the entire universe. At first glance, Long Yu could feel that her martial arts realm is a bit higher than the other 4 emperors. Of course, this feeling is completely unreasonable, because the strongest in Shenwu world is only Emperor Realm, and the 5 emperors are all at the peak of Emperor Realm. If they were to break through, Shenwu world wouldn't be able to contain them. The strongest King Realm competition will begin tomorrow morning. For the specific schedule, please check your King's Badge. Now, King's Badge. As soon as the Sacred Emperor finished speaking, he formed a hand seal with the other 4 emperors. Everyone in the courtyards and the 10,000 floors felt a jade slip appear in their hands out of nowhere. This is the King's Badge. Long Yu looked at the King's Life medallion in his hand and found that it recorded some information about himself, mainly his name, gender, and martial arts realm. Apart from this, he also found that he could use the King's Life medallion to do other things, such as entering and exiting the 10,000 levels. Martial cultivators could freely enter and exit the 10,000 levels, and as long as they had the King's Life medallion, they wouldn't be restricted. There were a few options in the King's Life medallion, and they were all grayed out, meaning that they couldn't be used. One of them was the option to place a bet. In order to make the competition more interesting and motivate the audience, the Alliance of 5 Emperors had opened up the option to place a bet. After the battle began, cultivators could place bets through the King's Life tablet. The final result would be settled after the strongest King Realm competition. Spectators could also participate. If they were lucky, they could earn a lot of extra money. The second option was the barrier option. This function could only be used in the strongest King Realm competition. During the battle between 2 King Realm powerhouses, the opportunity was fleeting and it might not be too late to admit defeat, so there was this barrier option. Once it was activated, a barrier would immediately appear to completely protect oneself. While saving one's life, it also counted as admitting defeat. After all, the strongest king realm was just a competition, not a life-and-death battle. If there were too many casualties, it wouldn't be appropriate. Long Yu studied the king's life medallion a little, and then began to check the general information of the participants in the strongest king realm competition through the information in the king's life medallion. There are actually more than 260,000 people participating. Long Yu was a little surprised. This number was more than twice the 100,000 people in previous years. It could be seen that the competition for this year's strongest king realm competition was very fierce. The rules are round after round of elimination. Long Yu then looked at the rules. In fact, the rules of the strongest king realm competition every year were the same. Although Long Yu knew it, it was better to look at it again in case there was any omission. There were more than 260,000 people participating in the competition. All the participating king realm martial cultivators would be in the 10,000 layer space. The rules of the 10,000 layer space would automatically deduce and draw lots, and their opponents would be completely random. In the first round, everyone would randomly draw 3 opponents. If they won 2, they could enter the next round. In this case, the probability of being eliminated was relatively high. However, the rules were fair. If they randomly drew 3 opponents, they would be able to display their true strength. If they were eliminated in one battle, and the strongest person met the second strongest person first, wouldn't that directly eliminate the second strongest person? In this case, it was naturally not appropriate. Therefore, everyone had 3 battles, and if they won 2, they could advance. In addition, everyone would know their opponent before the battle, and in each round, they would have 1 chance to choose again. That is, if they encountered an opponent that they could not defeat, they could choose another random opponent. In this way, it would ensure the greatest degree of fairness. Under this rule, no one knew exactly how many people would advance to the next round. Perhaps only 60,000 people would advance, or perhaps 120,000 people would advance. This was an uncertain number. Because once someone won 2 battles, there was no need to fight a 3rd battle. Once someone lost 2 battles, there was no need to fight a 3rd battle. Therefore, the total number of battles was also uncertain. It was precisely this uncertainty that ensured the greatest degree of fairness. Everyone would fight 3 battles, and if they won 2 battles, they would advance to the next round. Normally, when there were more than 100,000 people participating in the competition, a total of around 10 rounds could determine the top 32. This time, there would be an extra round. In the 10,000 layer space, these specific arrangements didn't need anyone to manage. The rules of the 10,000 layer space would automatically arrange the battle list. After the 5 emperors announced the start of the competition, the projection in the pitch-black void disappeared, and in the 10,000 layer space, the millions of King Path secret realm martial artists were all excited. Finally, it was about to begin. It was a sleepless night. Early the next morning, all the people in Long Yu's courtyard gathered together, waiting for the start of the strongest king realm competition. As 2 large words appeared in the pitch-black void outside the courtyard, the strongest king realm competition finally officially began. At this time, everyone's king life tablet began to move. This was the 10,000 layer space, determining the order of the battle based on the king life tablet of the participants. Because only 10,000 battles could be held in the 10,000 layer space at the same time, not everyone would be arranged to fight at the beginning. First, Long Yu wasn't picked. Instead, Feng Xiaofei and Hua Mei'er, who were beside him, were arranged to fight. I've never heard of an opponent in the late stage of the king realm. Feng Xiaofei looked at the opponent's information in the king life tablet, then looked up at Long Yu. Brother Long, my opponent is called Zhang Yiba. Have you heard of him? Never heard of him. Go and fight. Long Yu shook his head and smiled. Luckily, you broke through last night and are now in the late stage of the king realm. Work hard in this battle. Most importantly, you should familiarize yourself with your current strength. Your inner world has merged with the origin energy, so it will be difficult to control at the beginning. And don't worry, Feng Xiaofei chuckled. He had the ancient high-ranked combat weapon, the divine halberd of Berserk, given by Long Yu. Against an opponent in the same realm, he had a high chance of winning. Hua Meier's opponent was only in the mid-stage of the King realm, so it shouldn't be a problem for her. Both of them chose to accept the battle. Then, a white light appeared under their feet. It was the power of the divine text of space, and it teleported them away. Then, everyone chose to watch the battle between Feng Xiaofei and Hua Meier in the King Life Tablet. Immediately, the scene of Feng Xiaofei and Hua Meier's battle appeared in the pitch-black void outside the courtyard. Feng Xiaofei's battlefield was a forest, while Hua Meier's battlefield was an ice field. Both of these terrains were not good, especially for Hua Meier. She specialized in the power of the divine text of fire, but in the ice field, the power of the divine text of fire would be greatly weakened. Luckily, her opponent was only in the mid-stage of the King realm. She only participated in the King realm competition to broaden her horizons. As for Hua Meier, she had cultivated the Great Desolate level martial skills, Merak Steps, Migra Star Shield, and Fecta Star Fist. The three Great Desolate grade martial techniques that he obtained from the Scarlet Emperor combined offense, defense, and speed into one. His combat strength was extremely strong, especially since Hua Meier had comprehended these three techniques to consummation. She could execute them with ease. In less than 10 breaths, her opponent was defeated by Hua Meier. The barrier of his King Life tablet lit up, and he was teleported away. Hua Meier won. In fact, if Hua Meier used her full strength, she could probably defeat her opponent in 3 breaths. However, she was still cautious, so she delayed the battle. On the other hand, Feng Xiaofei's battle was much more intense because both sides were late-stage King Realm cultivators. Feng Xiaofei's opponent was called Zhang Yiba. This was a very ordinary name, and no one had heard of it. His strength was not very strong, so Feng Xiaofei was able to suppress Zhang Yiba with just his basic strength and the Berserk God's halberd. When Feng Xiaofei familiarized himself with the strength of the late-stage King Realm, the power of the Berserk God's halberd in his hands increased by several times. The power of the Berserk God's halberd was strong enough to suppress Zhang Yiba. 1 move, 2 moves, 3 moves. The Berserk God's halberd broke through Zhang Yiba's defense and pierced toward his face. Zhang Yiba's face was filled with fear, and he subconsciously activated the barrier of his King Life tablet to save his life. This way, he would be admitting defeat. The first battle, Feng Xiaofei and Hua Meier won. As the two of them returned to the courtyard, their King Life tablet had the words "First Round," 1 win written on it. It could be said that they had a good start. They did not meet any strong opponents, so their luck was not bad. Following that, Long Yu's King Life tablet showed that it was his turn to fight. However, before he could see who his opponent was, he was dumbfounded. His opponent actually chose a new opponent. In other words, the moment he saw Long Yu, he knew that he could not defeat him. So he exercised his right to choose a new opponent. I'm so famous now. Chapter 873. This was not the only thing that puzzled Long Yu. For the 3rd time in a row, all the opponents he was matched with chose to forfeit. No one wanted to fight against Long Yu. Obviously, before the battle, many people had investigated the overall situation of the strongest King Realm competition. If they encountered Long Yu, their chances of winning were extremely low. Under such circumstances, no one would be willing to fight against Long Yu. After all, everyone had one chance to forfeit. Forfeiting the first time did not count as a loss. Most people used this chance without hesitation when they encountered Long Yu. This caused Long Yu to feel rather puzzled and bored to the extreme. But there was nothing he could do about it. Although there weren't that many people who knew of Long Yu's name. On his King's Life token, it was written Scarlet Emperor's 7th direct disciple. With this identity, who would dare to challenge him? He saw Wind and Rain Xian, Shu Chan, Dugu Yijian, Man Xian, and the others all fought once. The situation was not bad. The 4 of them all won in the end. Only Dugu Yijian had a hard time winning. When Man Xin finally used the 7 devil blades and forced his opponent to use the king's life token to defend, Man Xin won. At this time, Long Yu finally started his own battle. After being forfeited 4 times in a row, there was finally someone who dared to fight against Long Yu. Long Yu looked at the name and smiled. The person's name was Qian Yuexia, and she was from the Shenluo Empire. Long Yu had some impression of this woman. Qian Yuexia was the maid of the Shenluo Empire's city lord's daughter. She had once tried to cut off Long Yu's arm under the order of the city lord's daughter. This woman must have done similar things many times before. Therefore, Long Yu did not have a good impression of Qian Yuexia. Since the other party did not forfeit and chose to accept the challenge, Long Yu did not mind using this person as a practice target. Long Yu felt the power of a spatial divine rune envelop him. Next, he was teleported to another layer of the 10,000 layers of space. There was yellow sand everywhere in this layer of space, and countless tornadoes were wreaking havoc everywhere as far as the eye could see. The entire natural environment was extremely harsh, and if some martial cultivators who had not reached the King Realm came here, they would probably be swept to death by the yellow sand. However, to Long Yu, this sandstorm was only a minor annoyance. After being teleported to this space, the positions of the 2 combatants were random. The entire space had a radius of 100 miles, so Long Yu could easily detect the entire space. Therefore, the strongest King Realm competition was multifaceted. It was a competition of comprehensive combat strength, not pure combat strength. Imagine if a person had a strong combat strength, but couldn't find the enemy. Wouldn't it be very helpless? It was even possible that he would be defeated by a sneak attack from his opponent and lose to someone who was weaker than him in direct combat. Long Yu's shadowy eye was activated. At this moment, his shadowy eye was already a high-level divine ability of the 7th level. With just a casual use, he could detect the situation within a radius of 500 kilometers. He quickly found the location of his opponent, Qian Yuexia, who was about 30 miles away from him. Then, he flew towards Qian Yuexia. In another resting courtyard of the 10,000 layers of space, Qian Yuexia's servant daughter, the daughter of the former desolate god city lord, Situ Lioli, was nervously watching the battle between Qian Yuexia and Long Yu. Beside Situ Lioli, the other people from the Shenluo Empire were also watching the battle. I didn't expect to see that kid so soon. It's a pity that it's Qian Yuexia and not us. A late-stage King Realm expert stood beside Situ Lioli and looked at Long Yu's figure in the image. His eyes flickered with hatred. This person was the son of a general from the Shenluo Empire. That general, like most of the other Emperor Realm experts, was left behind in the ancient ruins by Long Yu and never returned. Therefore, this person hated Long Yu very much. What was worth noting was that this general's son had explored in ancient ruins by himself last year and obtained an ancient martial skill and weapon. Now, his battle strength was extremely shocking. Although Long Yu had defeated Zheng En and Lan Shuyan, who were early-stage Emperor Realm, this person had also defeated an early-stage Emperor Realm Senior. Although it wasn't a life or death battle, it was just a sparring match. However, the senior from the Shenluo Empire had shown that this person's battle strength was definitely not inferior to an ordinary early-stage Emperor Realm expert. This made this person extremely confident. He firmly believed that there was no way he would lose to Long Yu. As for the fact that Long Yu had killed the 3rd prince, who was a mid-stage Emperor Realm expert, Situ Lioli had said that it was a sneak attack using despicable methods. Such despicable methods would definitely not be used in the competition of the strongest King Realm experts. Wei Ming, we don't need to rush. Situ Lioli's eyes flashed with hatred. However, she was able to keep her composure and said, Qian Yuexia can test the kid first and see how strong he is now. No matter what, Qian Yuexia is not a weakling. She can defeat most late-stage King Realm experts. Yes, the son of the general named Wei Ming nodded. He looked at Situ Lioli with eyes full of desire. However, he knew that Situ Lioli was the 1st prince's subordinate. The 1st prince was a mid-stage Emperor Realm expert. Even if he had obtained the inheritance from the ancient ruins, he wouldn't be able to fight against the first prince in a short period of time. Situ Lioli could not be touched. However, Qin Yuexia was different. She was only Situ Lioli's maid. Even Situ Lioli wanted to betroth Qin Yuexia to Wei Ming. Wei Ming was quite happy about this. After all, Qin Yuexia's beauty and figure were both top-notch. She was worthy of being his concubine. Wei Ming looked at the battle between Qin Yuexia and Long Yu, and his eyes darkened again. Long Yu was not easy to deal with. The reason why Wei Ming was confident was because he had a trump card. Of course, if he could kill Long Yu without using his trump card, that would be great. After all, he could only use his trump card once. As for the absolute protection of the king's life token, Wei Ming wasn't worried. All he needed to do was provoke Long Yu with words and force him to not use the king's life token. At that time, he would be able to kill Long Yu on the spot. They saw that in the desert, Qin Yuexia was unable to find Long Yu. On the other hand, Long Yu was flying towards Qin Yuexia at an extremely fast speed. This made Situ Lioli and Wei Ming feel strange. Qin Yuexia's detection mystique should be able to detect life within 50 miles. Plus, it's detection of life. It's the easiest way to detect life, but right now, that Long Yu is less than 50 miles away from her. Why doesn't she seem to be able to detect him? Situ Lioli furrowed her brows as she looked at Long Yu, who was currently flying about. Maybe she's setting up an ambush. That's not certain. Wei Ming thought about it and said, that Long Yu likes to sneak attack. So, he'll definitely use sneak attacks. Qin Yuexia can pretend that she doesn't know what he's doing. When he attacks, she can suddenly counterattack. The effect should be quite good. No matter what, I hope she's careful. Long Yu's sneak attack even killed the third prince. Situ Lioli was very worried. Luckily, she had the ruler's life tablet. As long as Qin Yuexia sensed danger, she would activate the ruler's life tablet. Then, her life wouldn't be in danger. This made Situ Lioli feel a little more at ease. What the two didn't know was that Qin Yuexia wasn't pretending to set up an ambush. She really didn't sense Long Yu's approach. That was because Long Yu had already cultivated the martial Dao secret technique, balance control, to the 5th level, and he had the ability to conceal his own energy fluctuations. If he relied on detection, then even if Long Yu was right in front of him, his opponent wouldn't be able to sense Long Yu's presence. This was the heaven-defying part of a secret martial art. To reach the 5th level of balance control, Long Yu used up an immeasurable amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy. This much heaven and earth spiritual energy was enough for Long Yu to break through from the late stage of the King realm to the late stage of the Emperor realm. He used more than 60 ancient and archaic super pills. When he increased his mystique and godward compatibility, he also used up an endless amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy. Even so, he only reached the 5th level of balance control. When he was at the 2nd level of balance control, he was already able to slightly conceal his energy waves. Now that he was at the 5th level, Long Yu was able to conceal his energy waves to the extreme. Now, unless it was an Emperor Realm expert, no one would be able to sense his existence with a detection innate ability. If Long Yu's martial Dao realm increased to the Emperor Realm, then even great Emperor experts would find it extremely difficult to discover him. However, he didn't need to do so for the time being. This would have to wait until after the strongest King Realm competition. When Long Yu was within 1 mile of Qin Yuexia still couldn't sense Long Yu even after he used ethereal concealment. Balance control, concealment. Ethereal concealment, concealment. Unless Long Yu was right next to Qin Yuexia's body, his opponent wouldn't be able to sense his presence. Of course, Long Yu couldn't reveal his true strength right now. He knew very well that a lot of people were watching his battle, and most of them were his enemies. He couldn't let others know about such a heaven-defying technique. He just needed to give others a sense of mystery. Soon, Long Yu was within 100 yards of Qin Yuexia. He flipped his hand, and the blade of the Nether Void Dragon flew out. Space Piercer. Killing intent exploded. Qin Yuexia was already prepared. Since she couldn't find Long Yu, she waited for Long Yu to come. The moment she felt Long Yu's sneak attack, she waved her hand, and a godly symbol appeared in front of the blade of the Nether Void Dragon. She didn't think Long Yu's long-range attack could kill her. Yet in the next second, the godly symbol defensive barrier shattered. She was so scared that she subconsciously used her ruler's life token. Just one move, and Qin Yuexia was forced to admit defeat. Qin Yuexia didn't even know what other tricks Long Yu had up his sleeve. Chapter 874. Long Yu only used one move. The Nether Void Dragon Blade's powerful penetrative power forced Qin Yuexia to surrender. If he was just a moment later, Qin Yuexia would have been killed by Long Yu. To Long Yu, Qin Yuexia was only at the same level as him. If Long Yu had to use a second move against an opponent of the same level, wouldn't he be too weak? When he was in the Secret Realm, he killed Gongsun Jiaxing in 2 moves. He never used a second move against an opponent of the same level. Of course, this was for normal people. Without a doubt, while Qin Yuexia was stronger than many late-stage King Realm, she was still a normal cultivator. She posed no threat to Long Yu. Long Yu's body was once again surrounded by the white spatial runes, and he returned to the resting area. Amazing one-move kill. When Long Yu appeared, many people cheered. Long Yu casually smiled and did not take it to heart. Instead, he cast his gaze towards Feng Haofeng, because Feng Haofeng's first opponent had already been decided. His opponent's name was Wei Ming, and it was noted that he was from the divine Luo Empire. This was what Long Yu was interested in. The Shenluo Empire was a country that he had a deep grudge against. Haofeng, be careful. There is one thing you must do. Long Yu said solemnly, don't talk to this person. No matter how he provokes you, don't take it to heart, and don't fall for his tricks. Promise me you won't use the king's life token. Do you understand? Hearing Long Yu's solemn words, Feng Haofeng, who had just stepped into the late-stage king realm, nodded calmly. Brother Long, don't worry. I've just entered the late-stage king realm, and I'm not very strong. If I can't beat him, I'll surrender. Remember, Long Yu reminded again. Feng Haofeng nodded, and his body was teleported to another level to prepare to fight with Wei Ming. Long Yu started to observe Feng Haofeng's fight. It was in the sky above an ocean. The seawater was extremely deep, and no one knew what was in the water. Above the ocean was the sky, and there were no clouds for 100 miles. One could see the end of the sky with a single glance. Feng Haofeng appeared near the center of this space. On the opposite side, Shenluo Empire's Wei Ming appeared 20 miles away. The two of them flew above the sea and immediately saw each other. In the courtyard where the people from the Shenluo Empire were, Situ Lioli was comforting Qin Yuexia, who had just been defeated by Long Yu in a single move. Even now, Qin Yuexia's face was pale. Long Yu's attack had been too fast and too strong, and she had been unable to resist at all. If it weren't for the fact that she had the king's life tablet, she would have been killed by Long Yu long ago. Don't worry, Yuexia. Look, big brother Wei Ming is fighting with Feng Haofeng. Do you know who Feng Haofeng is? Situ Lioli tried to divert Qin Yuexia's attention. Never heard of it. Qin Yuexia shook her head. This Feng Haofeng's note is from the North Snow Empire's Heavenly Mandate Manor. Do you know? It's the force that Long Yu is from. Situ Lioli's eyes were filled with hatred. Although we are no match for Long Yu, big brother Wei Ming's strength is extremely terrifying. Let's let Long Yu see what happens when his friend is killed. Killed? Qin Yuexia was stunned. Wasn't there a king's life tablet in this competition? As long as there was a king's life tablet, one could surrender with just a thought and survive at the same time. Big brother Wei Ming was quite strong, but to kill him before he could even think of anything, it would still be very difficult, right? Even Long Yu couldn't kill her in one move, and she still managed to come out alive. Just watch. Wei Ming's father was framed by Long Yu, and we don't even know if he's dead or alive. How could he let Long Yu roam freely? We should let him have a taste of losing a friend. Situ Lioli's eyes were filled with anticipation. She couldn't wait to see Long Yu's face in pain. In the arena, Feng Haofeng and Wei Ming approached each other. The flying speed of a king's late-stage expert was extremely fast. In less than a dozen breaths, the distance between them was only a few hundred feet. This distance could be said to be very close. Wei Ming stopped in the air above the sea and looked at Feng Haofeng. His eyes revealed a warm smile. "You are Feng Haofeng. Who are you to Long Yu?" Feng Haofeng had no intention of stopping to talk to him. He was a very steady person. Since Long Yu had already warned him, he would definitely listen to Long Yu's words and strictly execute them. It was impossible for him to have any conflicts because of personal feelings. Feng Haofeng raised his hand. The earth elemental divine characters condensed in his hand and instantly formed a huge rock. He threw it at Wei Ming. Wei Ming's face changed. However, he still had a warm smile on his face. "Looks like you don't really want to talk to me, but it doesn't matter. Looks like we can still fight. Your strength is not bad." After saying that, Wei Ming raised his hand and condensed a wave of light divine characters. It formed a light attribute light divine characters barrier and blocked the rocks that Feng Haofeng threw at him. The rocks and a light attribute light divine characters barrier shattered. The momentum of the two was actually evenly matched. This scene undoubtedly gave Feng Haofeng some confidence. It seemed like he still had hope for his first battle. After all, he had cultivated the Desolate Grade Star series martial skills. For example, Merak Steps, Migrez Star Shield, and Fectus Star Fist. These three martial skills were quite good when used together. They had both offense and defense and were very fast. If the opponent's basic strength was similar to his, he had a high chance of winning if these three martial skills were used together. Especially since Feng Haofeng had already comprehended these three martial skills to the great perfection realm. They were very powerful. Instantly, the two of them started fighting on the surface of the sea. Light divine characters and earth elemental divine characters flew back and forth. The sky lit up and the sand and stones flew. At first glance, it seemed like the fight was extremely intense. After 10 breaths of time, Feng Haofeng had basically familiarized himself with the opponent's basic strength. Just as he was about to launch an even more violent attack, a dangerous aura hit him in the face. "Watch out!" Long Yu and the others couldn't help but shout out. Unfortunately, they shouted in the courtyard. Feng Haofeng, who was in another space, couldn't hear them. In the next moment, a blood-red light pierced towards Feng Haofeng like a venomous snake. Long Yu and the others could see it clearly, but Feng Haofeng, who was in the middle of fighting, couldn't feel it. Because of the previous 10 breaths of time, he felt that he was evenly matched with Wei Ming. Therefore, he didn't activate his King's Life tablet to protect himself. By the time he remembered Long Yu's warning, it was already too late. That blood-red light directly pierced through Feng Haofeng's chest. Although it didn't pierce through his heart, it directly crippled Feng Haofeng. At this moment, Feng Haofeng finally activated his King's Life tablet. A gentle light emitted from it to protect him. However, at this moment, the fatal wound had already been inflicted. Even the activation of the King's Life tablet was of no use. Everyone in the courtyard where Long Yu was in suddenly darkened. That Wei Ming was too cunning. He actually used the same basic strength as Feng Haofeng to fight. After Feng Haofeng got used to it, he suddenly exploded and killed him in one blow. Just a slight hesitation caused Feng Haofeng to be seriously injured, and even on the verge of death. Damn it! Shu Quan, Qin Yishuang, Yuhan Xin, and the others saw through Wei Ming's plan. At the same time, they felt that this person was extremely despicable. He actually used such a method to kill Feng Haofeng. The next moment, Feng Haofeng's body was protected by the barrier of the King's Life tablet, and he returned to the courtyard. Long Yu and the others immediately ran over, only to discover that Feng Haofeng was already on the verge of death. That strike had pierced through his chest, causing him to be severely injured. However, the most fatal thing was that the strike actually contained a deadly poison. Long Yu's heart sank. He directly took out a healing elixir from his arms. "Captain Snowdance, please take care of him first." Now that we may be selected to participate in the battle at any time, only you Emperor Realm experts can take care of him. Long Yu stuffed the healing elixir into Feng Haofeng's mouth, then breathed a sigh of relief and said to Yu Shuwu, the captain of the Snowdance Corps. Of course, Yu Shuwu listened to Long Yu's orders. However, her expression was very bad. Master Long, with all due respect, such a serious injury, and containing a strong poison that we don't know about, I'm afraid your brother, don't worry. Looking at everyone's serious expressions, Long Yu smiled. That elixir of mine is very effective. Haofeng will definitely be fine. You just need to take care of him. If there are no accidents, he will wake up in an hour and return to his peak state. Long Yu didn't say this without reason, because the elixir he just gave Feng Haofeng was an Archean Supreme grade healing elixir. It was especially effective against strong poisons. At least in Shenwu world, there was no poison that this elixir couldn't cure. The Death Envoy had said so himself. Furthermore, after consuming this pill, it would strengthen one's fleshly body to a certain degree. To the current Long Yu, this little bit of fleshly body strengthening was useless. But to Feng Haofeng, this pill would at least double the strength of his fleshly body. An Archean grade elixir. This was something that no one in Shenwu world had ever heard of, not to mention taking it out and giving it to someone else. That's why Long Yu didn't say it out loud. Even though everyone here was on the same side, it was better to keep something like this a secret. Hearing Long Yu's words, many of the people here had strange expressions on their faces. After all, Feng Haofeng's chest had been pierced through. Even though his heart wasn't injured, he was heavily injured and on the verge of death. He was also poisoned by a terrifying, unknown poison. Wanting to live would be harder than ascending to the heavens. How could a single elixir heal him? And he said that he would fully recover in an hour. They had never heard of such a good elixir. Of course, a portion of them believed in Long Yu unconditionally. Others were very suspicious of Long Yu's words. But now was not the time to voice it out. But there was one thing that everyone was the same. Towards Wei Ming, who had heavily injured Feng Haofeng, everyone hated him to the core. Chapter 875. There were a total of 260,000 people participating in the strongest King Realm competition. Among so many people, the probability of being randomly selected to fight with Wei Ming was extremely low. Therefore, even if Long Yu and the rest wanted to take revenge for Feng Haofeng, they couldn't do it in a short time. They could only wait for an opportunity. But nobody expected that the opportunity would come so quickly. Less than 2 hours after Feng Haofeng was heavily injured, Long Yu and the rest saw Wei Ming's name once again. This was Wei Ming's second appearance, and his opponent was shockingly Shi Yingwu. When Shi Yingwu revealed that her opponent was Wei Ming, everyone looked at her with anticipation. After all, everyone knew that Shi Yingwu had been cultivating with Long Yu for the past year and had improved at lightning speed. Her strength was definitely not weak. If there was anyone here who could win against Wei Ming, Long Yu was one, and Shi Yingwu was another. Be careful. Long Yu nodded to Shi Yingwu and said solemnly. Although he was confident in Shi Yingwu, he was still slightly worried because he wasn't sure what methods Wei Ming had. And Shi Yingwu obviously wouldn't be careless. In reality, under the Death Envoy's guidance, her battle awareness was extremely outstanding. It wasn't even inferior to Long Yu's standard. Furthermore, it was impossible for her to underestimate her opponent. The Death Envoy had said before, don't underestimate any opponent, because any opponent could kill you. Even if she was facing a seemingly weak person in the body-tempering mystic realm, she couldn't let her guard down. Perhaps this person was a super expert who had concealed his cultivation. Of course, it was impossible for Wei Ming to be a super expert, but his strength was still a mystery. Shi Yingwu definitely wouldn't be careless. Under everyone's expectant gaze, Shi Yingwu accepted the battle and was directly transported to the battlefield. This was a grassland covered in fog. Even a late-stage King Realm martial cultivator's eyesight couldn't see more than 10 feet. Fighting in such a place, one could only rely on one's own perception. If they didn't have a superior detection god art, they would definitely lose the battle in such a terrain. Long Yu entered Wei Ming's name into the king's life tablet and saw that Wei Ming had also appeared in the foggy prairie. Spectators could easily know the movements of others, but they couldn't tell their friends who were fighting. That was how it was now. Long Yu and the others were able to see Wei Ming's movements, but they were unable to inform Shi Yingwu. However, Long Yu was not worried at all. With Shi Yongwu's current strength, if she could not even defeat Wei Ming, then it would be a waste of the Death Envoy's teachings. On the other hand, when the others saw Sunset Dance and Wei Ming appear, they immediately felt nervous. Although they knew that Shi Yingwu was not weak, no one had seen Shi Yingwu fight, so no one knew her specific strength. In the end, they were still a little worried. However, since Long Yu and Shi Yingwu were quite confident, then they restrained themselves and did not say anything. They just quietly watched. However, after watching for a while, everyone was instantly enraged. This was because they saw that in Wei Ming's viewing screen, Wei Ming revealed a warm smile and suddenly said, "Long Yu, I know you're watching. What do you think of the gift I gave you before? That kid called Feng Haofeng. I'm afraid he's not going to make it, right? Since you think it's not enough, I'll give you another gift. This Shi Yingwu, I won't let her go back alive either." Provocation. This was Wei Ming's extremely arrogant provocation towards Long Yu. Although Long Yu was confident that nothing would happen to Feng Haofeng, when he heard this person's words, a cold light flashed in his eyes. This person seemed to be full of smiles, but in fact, he was extremely sinister. It would not be easy to deal with him. Even if Shi Yingwu really had the ability to defeat Wei Ming, when the time comes, Wei Ming could directly activate the ruler's life tablet and still not be able to do anything to him. Long Yu and the others were extremely displeased. However, the following direction was not something they could control. Everything depended on how Shi Yingwu would handle it. Shenluo Empire's courtyard. Situ Liuli and Qian Yuexiao were watching the scene nervously. Because Feng Haofeng had just been seriously injured by Wei Ming, and he was also poisoned. Even if he was teleported out, he would only be dead. Therefore, Situ Liuli and Qian Yuexiao were in a good mood. Even the other people from Shenluo Empire were in a good mood. Everyone looked at Wei Ming in the middle of the battlefield and gave him a look of admiration. I didn't expect Brother Wei Ming to be so powerful. He actually toyed with Feng Haofeng to death. Just thinking of Long Yu's expression now, I'm satisfied. Qian Yuexiao smiled. This is not the end. In the end, we will kill all the people around Long Yu. Situ Liuli was filled with murderous intent. Her eyes were filled with the joy of revenge. The first prince of Shenluo Empire was also here. He wore a purple and gold robe and looked at the battlefield between Wei Ming and Shi Yingwu. His eyes were filled with joy. Long Yu, previously you trapped my father in the ancient ruins and cruelly ambushed and killed my third brother. Did you ever think that this day would come? This strongest king realm competition will definitely be the day you die. The first prince of Shenluo Empire thought in his heart. He was looking forward to Wei Ming making another contribution and killing that girl named Shi Yingwu. However, he had never thought that Long Yu did not take the initiative to deal with his father and his third brother. Long Yu only wanted to make a trip to the primordial ruins, and the primordial ruins just so happened to be in the Shenluo Empire. The emperors of Shenluo Empire were trapped in the ancient ruins. They were the ones who asked for it. Long Yu had never thought of taking the initiative to look for trouble. It had always been trouble looking for him. However, the first prince of Shenluo Empire naturally would not think that way. No matter what, he would not let off the person who framed his father and killed his third brother. In the battlefield, Wei Ming and Shi Yingwu were getting closer and closer to each other. The two of them flew in the foggy grassland and got closer to each other. It was obvious that both of them had mastered some kind of detection technique and could detect each other's location. Soon, the two of them were less than 200 feet away from each other. Wei Ming spoke first. Shi Yingwu, you are from the North Snow Empire's Heavenly Mandate Manor. That means you are Long Yu's friend, right? There was no need to waste words to deal with a guy like Wei Ming. However, Shi Yingwu clearly had her own plans. Although she could not see where Wei Ming was due to the fog, she could clearly sense where he was. She heard Wei Ming's words and instantly smiled faintly. That's right, I am his friend. You could defeat Feng Haofeng in one move. Very powerful, but you are too despicable. No matter what, I will take revenge for Feng Haofeng. Is that so? Wei Ming chuckled. Since that's the case, how about we make a bet? We will both throw away the king's life tablet. This way, we can decide life and death. Neither of us will be able to activate the protective barrier of the king's life tablet. How about that? Sure, I will count to 3, and we will throw it away together. Shi Yingwu said faintly, 1, 2, 3. When she counted to 3, she felt that Wei Ming had indeed thrown the king's life tablet on the grassland. Hence, she also threw the king's life tablet. Both of them were very confident in their own strength. The reason why they threw the king's life tablet was undoubtedly because they wanted to kill each other. Although Wei Ming had used a trick to kill Feng Haofeng, he could not use the same trick twice. This time, Shi Yingwu would definitely not fall for it. Hence, if he wanted to kill Shi Yingwu, he could only make her throw away the king's life tablet. This way, when both of them were in mortal danger, they would not be able to activate the protective barrier of the king's life tablet. If that happened, they would die for real. Although the king's life medallion had been thrown away and they could sense where it was, they definitely wouldn't have the chance to pick it up in battle unless they had the upper hand. But if they had the upper hand, why would they bother to pick up the king's life medallion? Kill. As soon as the two of them threw their king's life tablets, Wei Ming immediately made his move. A blood-red color seeped out from the fog around Shi Yingwu and continuously spread towards her. Blood poison divine text. Looks like you have indeed entered the ancient ruins and obtained its inheritance. Shi Yingwu narrowed her eyes. Now that she had personally experienced it, she could immediately tell what the other party was using. She immediately felt more confident. She had been cultivating with the Death Messenger for the past year and had even become his personal disciple. Naturally, the Death Messenger had told her many things. The blood poison divine text was one of them. This was a type of origin divine text with an extremely sinister nature. It was a combination of life and shadow attributes, so it wasn't easy to comprehend it. It could be seen that Wei Ming was quite talented, and the blood poison divine script only exists in a single age of old ruins in Shunwu world. That age of old ruins was created by a former prisoner of the 9 Nether Dragon Emperor. He left his inheritance there, and now it has finally seen the light of day again. If he was fighting against any other King Realm late-stage cultivator, Wei Ming's chances of winning would be very high. He might even be able to make it into the top 10 of the strongest King Realm competition. Unfortunately, he ran into Shi Yingwu. Not only was Shi Yingwu very strong, but she also had some understanding of the blood poison divine text. Unfortunately, the death divine text was one of the blood poison divine text's nemesis, because the blood poison divine text was a combination of life and shadow attributes. It contained the power of life, which was perfectly countered by the death divine text. As the blood poison divine text spread towards Shi Yingwu didn't move. The death divine text covered her entire body, forming a defensive barrier as she flew towards a certain direction to break out of the encirclement. Right at this moment, a blood-colored blade descended from the sky, slashing down toward Shi Yingwu. An ancient high-rank combat weapon, not bad. Sunset Dance's eyes lit up. With a single glance, she could tell what her opponent was using. It was an ancient superior-grade combat weapon. Furthermore, it was an ancient inferior-grade martial skill. The blood-colored saber light was extremely terrifying. It seemed that Wei Ming wanted to defeat Shi Yingwu in a single move. After all, he still wanted to deal with Long Yu himself, so the less he exposed, the better. Chapter 876. Wei Ming saw Long Yu as his mortal enemy, so he had investigated Long Yu and the people around Long Yu. He had seen Shi Yongwu's information, but Shi Yingwu had not shown up in any way. The only thing worth noting was that Shi Yingwu had not appeared in the past year. Others, such as Shu Chan and Qin Yashuang, would occasionally appear in the holy city of the five emperors, but Shi Yingwu did not. Wei Ming was a cautious person. Although he was confident in himself, he did not underestimate Shi Yingwu. This was a battle of life and death. Wei Ming's most powerful attack came crashing down. The blood poison divine characters that he had released earlier had the effect of shielding the space divine characters, so Shi Yingwu could not dodge this attack. However, he did not know that Shi Yingwu did not need to dodge at all. Suffering darkness lamp, sea of bitterness. Shi Yingwu raised her hand, and a darkness lamp appeared in her hand. The lamp released a deep and gloomy light. It was very conspicuous in the thick fog, and instantly made the whole place look gloomy. Compatible with Tianqi. In the short span of a year, the Dance of the Sunset had actually fused with the Misery Darkness Lantern to the level of Heavenly Awakening. From Resonance to Psychic Link, and then to Heavenly Awakening, the speed at which a cultivator could fuse with a battle weapon was extremely slow. Even Long Yu and the Netherworld Dragon Blade had only reached the level of Heavenly Awakening. However, in just a year, Shi Yingwu had actually reached the level of Tianqi with the Suffering Darkness Lamp, an ancient high-rank combat weapon. She had performed the Sea of Bitterness, and the whole place was shrouded in the dim light of the Suffering Darkness Lamp. The blood-poisoned divine characters that had shrouded the whole place disappeared without a trace, and Shi Yangwu's Suffering Darkness Lamp rose up, blocking the blood-colored light of the Suffering Darkness Lamp. This was a head-on battle between the two. Wei Ming didn't know about Shi Yangwu's background, so he still smiled when he saw the situation. He felt that Shi Yingwu was definitely going to die, but very quickly, his eyes revealed a look of fear. Unbreakable, his strongest blade light couldn't even cut through the Netherlantern battle soldier. Ancient upper grade. Wei Ming could immediately tell that Shi Yangwu's Netherlantern battle soldier was the same as the longsword in his hand. Not only that, but the divine runes that Shi Yingwu comprehended seemed to be able to restrain his blood-poisoned divine runes. Blood Sea Wild Saber, first move. Wei Ming didn't think much of it. He waved his blood-colored saber light at Shi Yingwu again. This time, the saber light split into four and attacked Shi Yingwu from four different directions. Wei Ming's saber technique was extremely violent, and it was also laced with poison. Once injured, even if it wasn't a fatal injury, it would still be very troublesome. Very few people could detoxify the poison. Even if they didn't die, it would still cause great damage to their bodies. The inheritance of the person who had mastered the blood-poison divine runes was extremely vicious. If Wei Ming wasn't a vicious person to begin with, he might not have been able to obtain such an inheritance. The Suffering Darkness Lamp emitted 4 rays of gloomy light, blocking the 4 blood-colored saber lights. However, another 9 saber lights swept over from all directions. This was the second move of the Blood Sea Wild Saber. There were a total of 9 saber lights, and each of them possessed extremely terrifying power. Even an initial Emperor Realm expert would be completely suppressed by it. Unfortunately, Shi Yingwu wasn't an ordinary person. Seeing that Wei Ming wasn't easy to deal with, she immediately changed her position. Archaic martial technique, Dance of Death. This was an archaic martial technique that the Death Envoy had taught her. As a personal disciple, the Death Envoy wasn't stingy with Shi Yingwu at all. Most importantly, the Dance of Death was especially suitable for Shi Yingwu, not Long Yu. After all, Long Yu didn't primarily cultivate the divine runes of death, but Shi Yingwu only cultivated the divine runes of death. The moment the Dance of Death was executed, illusions of Shi Yingwu immediately appeared all over the place. Moreover, these illusions were actually identical to her real body, making them even harder to distinguish than Long Yu's primordial afterimages. Wei Ming's expression immediately darkened. What kind of martial technique was this? How could it be so strange? The visibility on the misty prairie wasn't very high to begin with. Wei Ming immediately felt that Shi Yangwu's illusory martial technique was quite troublesome to deal with. Fortunately, he had a large area of effect innate skill that he had already comprehended into an advanced innate skill. At this moment, he did not hesitate to use it. The blood poison divine text instantly spread in all directions, covering the entire space in a blood-red color. The blood poison divine rune's penetrative ability was greatly increased in this bloody red. All the illusions of the dance of death that came into contact with the bloody red were instantly infected by the blood poison divine rune's poison. Corrode. A trace of viciousness appeared in the depths of Wei Ming's eyes, but he still wore a warm smile on his face. No one could sense his malevolence at all. However, he was soon dumbfounded. His mist of blood poison divine runes could even corrode an initial Emperor Realm opponent in normal circumstances. But now, the mist was completely ineffective against Shi Yongwu's illusions. Even the illusions were this terrifying. Wei Ming's expression changed, from his initial confidence to slight fear and then to his current vigilance. He slowly realized that the little girl in front of him was definitely not easy to deal with. In fact, she was extremely difficult to deal with. 7 forms of blood, sea manic saber, 3rd form. A total of 16 blade lights spread in all directions, and each of them slashed at an illusion of Shi Yingwu. However, all the illusions of Shi Yingwu raised their hands at the same time, and a dark lantern appeared in their hands at the same time, blocking all the blade lights. Then, this batch of illusions disappeared, and another batch of dozens of illusions appeared in different locations, closing in on Wei Ming. This was the dance of death. There were countless illusions of Shi Yingwu, and every single one of them seemed real. Each of them even had an ancient high-ranked combat weapon in their hands. How was he supposed to fight them? 7 forms of blood, sea manic saber, 4th form. 25 blood-colored saber lights swept out, but it was useless. Wei Ming's expression became more and more gloomy as he looked at the countless illusions of the dance of the sunset approaching him. The aura of death continuously seeped into his body, causing a psychological shadow to form in his heart. 7 forms of blood, sea manic saber, 5th form. 36 blood-colored blade lights shot out with enough power to destroy heaven and earth. Even an initial Emperor Realm cultivator would die in the face of such an attack. However, it still couldn't do anything to so many of Shi Yongwu's avatars. Wei Ming's situation was extremely bad, but among all the spectators, only Long Yu could understand the situation. Everyone else, including Yu Hanxin, was frowning at this moment. She couldn't understand what was going on with Shi Yongwu's technique. Shi Yongwu's avatars kept dancing, disappearing and reappearing. Every single one of them seemed fake, but every single one of them was real. This feeling was even more inexplicable than facing Long Yu's primordial afterimage. When Long Yu used the primordial afterimage, Yu Hanxin could easily tell which one was real and which one was fake. However, now that she was watching Shi Yongwu's battle, she couldn't feel it at all. Perhaps it's because I can only see with my naked eyes, but I can't feel her aura. Yu Hanxin thought to herself. She immediately looked at Shi Yingwu in a new light. This girl's strength was truly surprising. Long Yu was the only one who narrowed his eyes when he saw Shi Yongwu's technique. He had sparred with Shi Yingwu during the past year of cultivation, so it was only natural that he was familiar with the dance of death. Everyone would think that this was a movement technique that condensed illusions, but only Long Yu knew that it was actually a mental attack. The dance of death danced in everyone's mind. In reality, Shi Yongwu's real body was rapidly approaching her target, but her opponent couldn't sense it at all. What her opponent could see and feel was all fake. Their minds had been affected by the divine runes of death, and that was why they had fallen for it. This was the reason why this move was a transcendent, immemorial grade martial skill. Not only was the dance of death able to confuse the opponent, but it was also able to confuse all the spectators, even if the spectators were not present. Even Yu Hanxin was unknowingly infected by the dance of death, and she couldn't see through the essence of this move. When Long Yu first sparred with Shi Yingwu, he had also almost fallen for it. At the last moment, he had only broken through the mental shackles, and the illusion had collapsed on its own. But now, Wei Ming clearly couldn't compare to Long Yu. In reality, Shi Yingwu was already close to Wei Ming, but he didn't sense it at all. He was still using the seventh move of Wild Blood Sea Saber, constantly attacking the illusions of Shi Yingwu. He didn't know that the illusions didn't actually exist and were completely imaginary in his mind. Death. Assertion. When Shi Yingwu was within 10 feet of Wei Ming still hadn't sensed it. But if she got any closer, he might be able to sense it. So Shi Yingwu stopped moving forward and directly used her killer move. High-level divine ability, Death Assertion. A wave of divine runes of death appeared out of thin air, enveloping Wei Ming's entire body. By the time he realized that something was wrong, the divine runes of death had already penetrated deep into his body. 3 breaths later, the divine runes of death instantly erupted. Wei Ming's entire body, flesh, and blood were instantly corroded and withered by the divine runes of death. His entire body seemed to have become a dried corpse. Death had come so suddenly that he wasn't prepared at all. At the last moment, his eyes widened. He wanted to use the final technique he had prepared to use against Long Yu, but he discovered that he had already died. Not only had his body died, but all of the divine characters and power within his body had died. Even his inner world had died. There was no longer any life force or power within it. The only thing that was still alive in his entire body was his consciousness. Chapter 877. Death's Assertion was a high-level divine ability that Shi Yingwu had comprehended. It allowed her to corrode the divine runes of death into her opponent's body, but it required 3 breaths' time to prepare. Under normal circumstances, it would be very difficult to be effective. However, when combined with Shi Yongwu's dance of death martial skill, it would be extremely easy to confuse her opponent. Wei Ming had never imagined that he would die like this. When the divine runes of death first invaded his body, it was already too late by the time he realized it. Death had already descended upon his body. When Wei Ming's body fell onto the misty grassland, Shi Yingwu did not let him go so easily. She immediately rushed forward and used an offensive divine ability that was formed from the divine runes of death to corrode Wei Ming's body, leaving nothing behind. Immediately after, she found her king's life tablet, and the king's life tablet teleported her back. Wei Ming had lost, and it was a crushing defeat. He didn't even know how he had lost. Even Yuan Xin had no idea what had happened, let alone the people of the Shenluo Empire. Situ Liuli, Qian Yuexia, and the crown prince of the Shenluo Empire, who were waiting for Wei Ming to kill Shi Yingwu, were all stunned on the spot at this moment. Dead? How could this be possible? Wei Ming had an ancient high-ranked combat weapon, and he had cultivated an ancient high-ranked martial skill. How could he have died just like that? Moreover, his death was so miserable, and he didn't even know the cause of his death. They didn't see Shi Yingwu use any techniques, but the dance of death had created countless illusions that danced towards Wei Ming. In just a short while, Wei Ming's entire body shriveled up as if he had been sucked dry. Death had descended upon him. Shi Yongwu's various techniques were completely undetectable, and she had killed people without them noticing. Everyone from a Shenluo Empire had ugly expressions on their faces. Although Wei Ming had killed one of Long Yu's friends, Feng Haofeng, he was also killed by Shi Yingwu. No wonder Shi Yingwu was so confident in throwing away her king's life tablet to fight Wei Ming. In fact, before the battle, both sides were confident in themselves. Unfortunately, Shi Yongwu's confidence came from the Death Envoy, who had existed for countless years. Furthermore, the Death Envoy was very clear about the characteristics of the blood-poisoned divine runes. What Wei Ming was so proud of was something that Shi Yingwu didn't even care about. The blood-poisoned divine text was very powerful, but it was completely countered by the death divine text. It could not even display half of its original power. In addition, Sunset Dance's technique was very special, so Wei Ming could not resist at all. I've lost. Situ Liuli's face turned pale. She never thought that Shi Yingwu, who was by Long Yu's side, would be so powerful. Didn't that mean that if Shi Yingwu were to fight against her, she would be able to kill her? Situ Liuli admitted that she wasn't Wei Ming's opponent, and she had no clue about Shi Yongwu's techniques. If she were to fight against Shi Yingwu, she would most likely die unless she directly admitted defeat. Don't worry too much. We still have many trump cards. Although you can't defeat Shi Yingwu or Long Yu, if you're to fight against someone else, you still have a high chance of winning. For example, Feng Haofeng, the crown prince of the Shenluo Empire, forced a smile as he walked over and embraced Situ Liuli. Yes, Situ Liuli could only think in this way. If I were to fight against Shi Yingwu or Long Yu, I could directly forfeit. But if I were to fight against someone else, I would still have a chance. It's just that there are already 260,000 people participating in the first round of the competition. The possibility of me fighting against them again is very small. It doesn't matter. Anyway, with your strength, the first 5 rounds shouldn't be a problem. The crown prince of the Shenluo Empire said, but a hint of pity flashed in his eyes. What he felt sorry for was naturally Wei Ming, who had just died in the hands of Shi Yingwu. If Wei Ming hadn't died, even if he had only lost to Shi Yingwu, he would definitely be able to win another round and enter the next round. In the end, he would become one of the top 10 in the competition. It was a pity that there were no ifs in this world. Now that Wei Ming had died, it could be said that the Shenluo Empire had lost its greatest battle strength. It would be very difficult for them to fight for a place in the competition. In the courtyard where Long Yu and the rest were, Shi Yongwu's return was unanimously welcomed by everyone. This was an outcome that no one had expected. Of course, except for Long Yu. Long Yu knew all of Shi Yongwu's methods, and he also knew that Shi Yingwu hadn't used all of her strength yet. Death Assertion was only one of the high-level mystic arts that Shi Yingwu had used. In fact, among her innate mystic arts, there were already 3 that had reached high-level mystic arts. Shi Yongwu's strength wasn't inferior to Long Yu from a year ago. Of course, compared to the current Long Yu, she still wasn't a match for him. In fact, there was a huge gap between them. But this didn't make Shi Yingwu feel depressed, because she had always admired Long Yu. No matter how strong Long Yu was, in Shi Yongwu's heart, it was an extremely normal thing. When Shi Yingwu returned, it was almost 2 hours after Feng Haofeng was injured. At this moment, Yushu finally brought a piece of good news, and she brought Feng Haofeng with her. After 2 hours, Feng Haofeng had indeed fully recovered, and his physical body was twice as strong as before. This caused countless people to be shocked. Many people thought that Long Yu said that Feng Haofeng would fully recover was just to reassure everyone, but they didn't expect that what Long Yu said was actually true. Feng Haofeng had really gotten rid of that serious injury and toxic state, recovered to his original state, and even his physical body had become stronger. Brother Long, Feng Haofeng was brought over by Yushu, and he looked a little guilty. I was too careless. This isn't your fault, but Wei Ming, who injured you, was just killed by Xiao Wu. Long Yu smiled and said, I think that if the Shenluo Empire knew that you didn't die, they would probably be furious. We've won this round of confrontation. That's good. Feng Haofeng nodded solemnly. He was quite dissatisfied with his own strength, and thought that he must go out to train in the future. Only by going out to train could he become stronger without Long Yu's help. Otherwise, he could only rely on Long Yu to become stronger. As a man, Feng Haofeng couldn't accept this. Previously, the matter of the heavenly mandate manor had made him afraid to leave. However, after experiencing this battle, he had made up his mind. Soon, Feng Haofeng's injuries were completely healed, and he continued to participate in the first round of the Strongest King Realm competition. When it was inconvenient for him, he could choose to pause the competition from the King's Life Tablet. The entire Strongest King Realm competition would last for 3 days, and each pause would last for 4 hours. When Feng Haofeng was injured, he subconsciously paused the competition, so he didn't have to fight during this period. When he recovered and canceled the pause, the 10,000 layers space immediately arranged the next opponent for him, which was an ordinary martial arts practitioner in the middle stage of the King Realm. Since it was only the first round, the probability of encountering a martial arts practitioner in the middle stage of the King realm was relatively high. In the next round, the martial arts practitioners in the middle stage of the King realm were basically all eliminated. At this time, many people from the Shenluo Empire began to watch the battles. They kept typing in the names of people on Long Yu's side, wanting to see the combat power of the people on Long Yu's side. Someone subconsciously typed in Feng Haofeng's name, then smiled disdainfully and shook his head. He remembered that this person was obviously killed by Wei Ming. To be able to kill his opponent under the protection of the king's life tablet, Wei Ming's strength was really terrifying. Unfortunately, he was still killed by someone else. Just as this person was thinking about this, a scene suddenly appeared in front of him. In this scene, it was Feng Haofeng using a remarkable technique, defeating a martial arts practitioner in the middle stage of the King realm, and thus winning. This person from the Shenluo Empire was shocked and thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. But after taking a closer look, it was really Feng Haofeng. That person is not dead. This person immediately shouted, attracting the attention of the people from the Shenluo Empire. The crown prince of the Shenluo Empire, Situ Liuli, Qian Yuexia, and the others all looked over and were instantly dumbfounded. Feng Haofeng, who was seriously injured by Wei Ming and poisoned by the terrifying blood poison, was actually not dead. Everyone from the Shenluo Empire saw this scene, and all of their hearts were covered with a layer of frost. In the following battles, they didn't coincidentally meet any other enemies. Long Yu also fought another battle and won easily. With one move, he knocked out his opponent's king's life tablet. His opponent was shocked and directly admitted defeat, allowing Long Yu to easily enter the second round. After 3 consecutive days, the first round of the King Realm competition ended. On Long Yu's side, basically all of them won in this round, and most of them advanced to the second round with 2 wins. The King's Life Tablet showed that there were a total of 120,000 people who advanced to the second round from the first round. The other 140,000 people were eliminated in the first round and lost more than 2 battles. This method of drawing lots was generally very fair. Those who were eliminated could only blame themselves for not being strong enough and didn't feel that they were unlucky. Then the second round began. The competition rules of the second round were exactly the same as the first round. In this round, everyone's opponents were much stronger, but to the true experts, the second round was still easy. For example, Long Yu, Shi Yingwu, and the others directly advanced to the second round with 2 wins. The second round of the competition lasted for 2 days, and then the third round, which also lasted for 2 days. Long Yu, Shi Yingwu, and the others smoothly entered the fourth round. According to the King's Life Tablet, there were a total of 35,000 people who entered the fourth round. Now, all the remaining people were the stronger late stage of the King Realm. There were already people beside Long Yu who were eliminated, such as Feng Haofeng, Sahan's Han, Yuqin Sha, and so on. Chapter 878. The strongest King Realm cultivators had reached the fourth round, and there were 35,000 people left. At this time, the strength of the people around Long Yu was roughly reflected. Except for those who had just stepped into the late-stage King Realm, most of them had advanced to the fourth round, especially Shi Yingwu, Gu Yixian, Mo Zhaiqian, Shu Chan, Man Xian, and Shi Hua. Their performance was very outstanding, and their strength was far beyond that of ordinary late-stage King Realm martial cultivators. Long Yu was naturally very happy about this. Although he regarded them as friends, if others could not rise, the gap between them would grow larger and larger, and they would probably become strangers in the end. Now, although they could not catch up with Long Yu, they could at least look at Long Yu from afar. Everyone was very clear that although Long Yu was only at the late-stage King Realm, they were definitely not a match for Long Yu. In these rounds, it was still difficult for Long Yu to find an opponent, because most of his opponents would directly give up fighting him. His status as the personal disciple of the Red Emperor was too shocking. However, in the end, there was still someone who had to fight against Long Yu. After all, everyone only had one chance to forfeit in every round. If the person who encountered Long Yu didn't have the chance to forfeit, then they could only brace themselves and fight. In the end, they were directly defeated by Long Yu, not even able to withstand a single move. Along the way, Long Yu was invincible, and he did not use a second move against the same person. At the beginning of the fourth round, Shu Chan, who was next to Long Yu, suddenly lit up. Look who I'm lined up against. It's actually the second princess of the Tianqin dynasty. The second princess of the Tianqin dynasty. When Long Yu heard this, he was a little happy. As for the Tianqin dynasty, Long Yu had long wanted to destroy it and avenge the Dark Shadow King, the Azura King, and the others, but this plan had not been carried out yet. Now, Shu Chan had been arranged to fight with the second princess of the Tianqin dynasty. Of course, everyone was happy. Before destroying the Tianqin dynasty, they could first abuse the people of the Tianqin dynasty. The second princess of the Tianqin dynasty was quite talented in martial arts. She was now at the late stage of the King realm and was only a step away from stepping into the Emperor realm. She suppressed her cultivation and prepared to participate in the strongest King realm competition. When she was arranged to be Shu Chan's opponent, she was overjoyed. Shu Chan, like Long Yu, was definitely one of the greatest enemies of the Tianqin dynasty. In the eyes of the second princess of the Tianqin dynasty, Shu Chan's strength had always been mediocre. Even if she was not bad compared to ordinary martial cultivators, she definitely could not be compared to her. It had to be known that the second princess, third prince, and eldest prince of the Tianqin dynasty had explored an ancient relic in the Tianqin dynasty together. The ancient relic had yet to be fully explored, and the entrance had always been guarded by the Tianqin emperor. From the ancient ruins, Emperor Tianqin's bloodline had passed down many ancient martial techniques. Ancient martial techniques. The second princess of the Tianqin dynasty only thought that Shu Chan was a slightly stronger opponent, so she did not take it to heart and directly went to battle. This naturally attracted the attention of Emperor Tianqin and the others. Among the participants of the strongest King realm competition from the Tianqin dynasty, the second princess was the strongest, followed by the third prince. Both of them had entered the fourth round, and their strength was quite good. Emperor Tianqin and the others were not worried that the second princess would encounter Shu Chan. They believed in the second princess' strength. However, they were soon dumbfounded. In the face of Shu Chan's various magical powers, the second princess had no power to resist and was directly defeated by Shu Chan in less than 5 moves. She had no choice but to activate the king's life token to save her life and was transported out. Emperor Tianqin, the eldest prince, and the third prince immediately went up to her and hurriedly asked about the situation. That Shu Chan, she has comprehended the power of the divine text at the origin level, and her 7 innate magical powers are all high-level magical powers. I am not her opponent. The second princess said with a gloomy face. Origin level. 7 high-level magical powers. Everyone was speechless. The two combined were indeed much stronger than the second princess. And the power of the divine text at the origin level was not something that could be comprehended through hard work or talent. It must have been because she had some fortuitous encounter. Where did she get the Azura divine text at the origin level? After we go back, we should carefully search the entire Shura region. Maybe we will find something good. The eldest prince of the Tianqin dynasty said in a deep voice, and this suggestion was also approved by the others. Although the second princess had lost to Shu Chan, she would not be eliminated. She still had 2 more matches. If she won both, she could still step into the 5th round of the competition. Soon, the second princess' second opponent was announced. It's Mo Zhaiqian from the Shura region again. The second princess's expression changed slightly. She had heard of Mo Zhaiqian. When the Shura region was still there, Mo Zhaiqian was the first of the younger generation of the Shura region, and he was even stronger than Shu Chan. She didn't know how strong Mo Zhaiqian was now. The second princess entered the arena again to fight against Mo Zhaiqian. She still had some confidence in herself. However, she had only fought against Emo Jietian for 3 breaths of time, and she had already been defeated. Her expression became even more gloomy. Emo Jietian has also comprehended the origin-level divine text, and he has an ancient-level martial skill, an ancient-level combat weapon. The second princess's face turned pale. She had never thought that she would be eliminated in the 4th round, let alone by her enemy. If she had known this would happen, she would have forfeited a match and changed to another opponent. That way, she might still have a chance. But now, the second princess lost 2 games in a row and was directly eliminated. There was no way for her to participate in the next strongest King Realm competition. Of course, being eliminated was better than dying. So compared to Wei Ming, the second princess's fate was much better. The second princess was defeated again, which made the other people of the Tianqing dynasty especially gloomy. How could this be? The second princess was already the strongest in the King Realm among the younger generation of the Tianqing dynasty. But now, she had lost 2 battles in a row against the younger generation of the Shura prefecture. Origin-level divine text? Ancient-level martial skill? Ancient-level combat weapon? How could it be so easy to get them? How could all the people of the Shura region have it? Yu Hanqin from the North Snow dynasty and Long Yu are now the Red Emperor's personal disciples. It shouldn't be difficult to get them. It seems that it will be too difficult for us to avenge our third brother. The first prince of the Tianqing dynasty said with a gloomy face. Hearing that, everyone agreed with him. However, the people of the Tianqing dynasty did not know that whether it was Xu Quan or Emo Jietian, their current strength had nothing to do with the Red Emperor. As for Emo Jietian, he had entered an antiquity relic. He had been looking for clues about the antiquity relic for a long time. In the past year, he had finally found it, entered it alone, and obtained the inheritance. Emo Jietian's inheritance was very powerful, even more powerful than the inheritance of the stormy demonic saber that Man Xian had obtained. That was why Emo Jietian had deliberately lost the clue about the stormy demonic saber to Long Yu, so that Long Yu would owe him a favor. In the battle between the Tianqing dynasty and the Shura region, the Tianqing dynasty might not have been able to win even without Long Yu. Long Yu had only helped the people of the Shura region to surpass the Tianqing dynasty earlier. The unlucky second princess of the Tianqing dynasty was directly eliminated in the 4th round. She was one of the unluckiest experts. Other martial cultivators with the second princess's strength could have at least made it to the top 1,000 of the strongest King Realm competition. If they were lucky, they might have been able to advance further. Unfortunately, because she had encountered Xu Quan and Emo Jietian, she was eliminated in the 4th round. For the second princess of the Tianqing dynasty, it was a nightmare. But for Xu Quan and Emo Jietian, it was just a small interlude, not even worth mentioning. Among the opponents they encountered, some were even stronger than the second princess, but they were all defeated in the end. In the 5th round, there were 16,000 people left. Most of the people around Long Yu had advanced easily. The forces that had a grudge against Long Yu, such as the Tianqing dynasty, the Shenluo Empire, the Taiwu Empire, and the Cloud's Empire, had been observing the battles of Long Yu's people. Soon, they discovered that the so-called strongest King Realm competition was as easy as eating for Long Yu's group. A total of more than 20 people had advanced to the 5th round. This number was no less than the strength of the Taiwu Empire, the Shui West Sword sect, and the Nine Sun sect. And this was only from the small North Snow dynasty. And this was just the beginning. For Long Yu, the strongest King Realm competition was not challenging at all. He had participated in the strongest King Realm competition with the sole purpose of being number 1. His strength was so strong that it made other King Realm experts feel hopeless. He would not use a second move against anyone. Even Tian Xinghe, who had been watching and wanted to take revenge on Long Yu, had a strange expression on his face at this time. All the way to the 5th round, he couldn't be like Long Yu, who defeated his opponent in one move every time. It had to be known that in the 5th round, there were quite a few people who were already quite strong. But even so, they were still defeated by Long Yu in one move The nightmare of these people who wanted to take revenge on Long Yu had just begun. The 5th round, the 6th round, the 7th round. After these 3 rounds, Long Yu had experienced 6 battles, and each time he defeated his opponent with 1 move. As for the other people beside Long Yu, the majority of them had also successfully advanced to the 8th round. At this moment, more than half a month had already passed. There were less than 1,000 King Realm martial cultivators who were still able to continue fighting. After 7 rounds of the strongest King Realm competition, most people had been eliminated, and the remaining 1,000 people could be said to be the elites of the elites. At this time, all the cultivators who had maintained a complete victory record had been counted and appeared in front of every spectator. Long Yu, Xiangwu, Gu Yixian, and Mo Zhaiqian, Shuchan. Along the way, these people had achieved a complete victory, which showed how strong they were. However, in this list, Long Yu and Shuchan also saw a familiar name. Tian Xinghe. This guy is also here, and he seems to be very strong. He has maintained a complete victory like us. Long Yu and Shuchan looked at each other and saw a touch of surprise in each other's eyes. Chapter 879. When the 8th round began, the names of all the martial cultivators who had a winning streak so far appeared in front of everyone, causing them to gasp in surprise. Including Long Yu and the others, there were a total of 45 people who had a winning streak so far. There was no doubt that these 45 people would be the final contenders for the championship. That Long Yu is the one who became the direct disciple of the Scarlet Emperor a year ago. Now, he is only at the late stage of the King Realm. But this time, he should be the strongest in the King Realm. Yes, it's said that he defeats his opponents with a single move in every battle. He's very powerful. His true strength has definitely reached the middle stage of the Emperor Realm, or even higher. That's just because he's lucky and hasn't encountered any strong opponents. Now there are a total of 45 people who have a winning streak. He's not the only strong one. It's hard to say who will be the champion this time. The genius of our Longhua sect, Gu Feichen, also has a winning streak. If he meets Long Yu, it's very likely that he'll be able to defeat him. The millions of King Realm experts who were watching the battle began to discuss among themselves. They were all paying attention to the 45 people who had a winning streak. Not everyone was optimistic about Long Yu. Among these 45 people, there were many geniuses from the 6 sects and 10 nations. There were also many experts from other countries and sects who had obtained some inheritance from ancient ruins by chance, causing their strength to soar. The 8th round, the rules were the same, but to everyone's surprise, 2 people who had a winning streak were arranged to fight together. It was Long Yu, who had the highest chance of winning the championship, and Gu Feichen, the genius of the Longhua sect from the Taiwu Empire. The battle began. At this moment, almost all the King Realm experts were watching the battle. Long Yu was teleported to the layer of space where the battle was taking place. He discovered that this was a void with a radius of 100 miles. It was pitch black all around without any light. Similarly, it was impossible to see the existence of others with the naked eye. The corner of Long Yu's mouth curled up slightly. In such an environment, he had a natural advantage. Gu Feichen of the Taiwu Empire probably couldn't even find a trace of him. Balance control, level 5. With a thought from Long Yu, the various energy fluctuations emanating from his body were completely concealed. At the same time, he unleashed Shadow to scan his surroundings. Just as he was doing this, in the void 20 kilometers away from him, an ancient ray of light suddenly erupted. It was the Taiwu Empire's Gu Feichen, who had directly used the light divine rune technique to illuminate a large portion of the void. It might be inconvenient for the spectators to watch the battle in such a dark place, but it's much better now. Gu Feichen, who was dressed in a simple gray robe, appeared in the light and said indifferently, "Long Yu, everyone will witness your defeat. Remember my name, Gu Feichen of the Taiwu Empire." As soon as he said this, the millions of spectators went into an uproar. This Gu Feichen was indeed arrogant and was worthy of being called a genius from the Taiwu Empire. Putting everything else aside, the fact that he was able to make it all the way to the 8th round without being defeated meant that his strength was unquestionable. However, after he said this, there was no movement from Long Yu, nor did he appear in the light in the middle of the void. This made Gu Feichen frown slightly. He felt that something was amiss, mainly because he could not sense any aura from Long Yu. It was as if he was the only person in the entire void. Could it be that Long Yu had not come in? Impossible. Gu Feichen was very confident in his detection ability, but now he was a little nervous. Although he looked arrogant on the surface, he was actually extremely vigilant. Long Yu, you're not speaking or appearing. Are you afraid of me, Gu Feichen? If you're afraid, just admit defeat. Don't be a coward. Gu Feichen's voice continued. After a while, there was still no movement from Long Yu, causing many spectators to feel slightly disappointed. Was Long Yu really a coward? He actually did not dare to appear in the face of Long Yu. It was fine if he did not appear, but now he was not even replying. However, just as more and more spectators were getting impatient, a shadow suddenly appeared behind Gu Feichen. The void was originally illuminated by Gu Feichen's divine-like characters, but now a thick, pitch-black fog suddenly appeared and enveloped Gu Feichen. In almost an instant, the shadow of the black fog emitted the protective light of the ruler life token. Immediately, everyone saw the result of the battle. Long Yu victory. These 3 simple words appeared on the screen, causing the spectators to be dumbfounded. One move, it was still one move. Even though Long Yu was facing the extremely arrogant genius of the Taiwu Empire, Gu Feichen, he only used one move to directly defeat him. Most importantly, no one could see what technique Long Yu had used. At this moment, everyone knew that Long Yu was not a coward. Instead, when facing such an opponent, he did not even have the mood to speak. He directly attacked and defeated him in one move. No matter how much you talk, you will only be humiliated. Many people had witnessed Gu Feichen's combat strength. When dealing with some formidable advanced stage King Realm experts, Gu Feichen's imposing aura was extremely grand and powerful, and he was capable of completely suppressing his opponent before deciding the outcome of the battle within 3 moves. Originally, everyone thought that with Gu Feichen's combat strength, he would be able to contend with Long Yu for a while. But now, it seemed that he was still far from it, as expected of the Red Emperor's personal disciple. In fact, even the other personal disciples of the Red Emperor, such as Xing Fa, Dao Jingtian, and so on, were now watching Long Yu's battle with their eyes wide open in disbelief. Gu Feichen was a genius of the Taiwu Empire. 7th junior brother is too awesome. Fatty Yu Linfeng chuckled, and a wretched look appeared in his eyes. 7 years ago, when I was still in the King Stage late stage, I also participated in the strongest King Stage competition. Unfortunately, I only got 11th place and lost to a genius from one of the 6 sects in 10 countries. Now, facing the same genius from the 6 sects in 10 countries, 7th junior brother can actually defeat him in one move. It's really terrifying. I've heard of that Gu Feichen before. His strength is indeed not bad. It is said that he is also expected to set foot on the 20th floor of the illusion dimension of the 5 emperors and become a personal disciple of the 5 emperors. Unfortunately, he is still far from 7th junior brother. Xing Fa nodded with satisfaction in his eyes. Long Yu's combat strength was extremely terrifying. It was not in vain that he had collected so many first-class divine rune crystals for Long Yu. If that's the case, 7 junior brothers' goal is definitely not just to be first in the strongest King Stage competition, but the strongest Emperor Stage competition. The 4th personal disciple of the Red Emperor, Nalin Jun, had a look of surprise in his eyes. 7 junior brother is now in the King Stage late stage. He only needs one more step to reach the Emperor Stage, and he will be qualified to participate in the strongest Emperor Stage competition. In addition, he has challenged the Qin family patriarch, the Gongsun family patriarch, and Ji Haokong of the Watermoon Sword sect to death last year. I can guarantee that this kid definitely wants to be first in the strongest Emperor Stage competition. His ambition is not small. The second personal disciple of the Red Emperor, Dao Jingtian, smiled. However, the competition for the strongest Emperor stage competition is much more intense than the strongest King stage competition. Even if he can easily become first in the strongest King stage competition, he will not be able to become first in the strongest Emperor stage competition. Let's keep watching. If 7th junior brother really wants to participate in the strongest Emperor stage competition, then there will be a good show to watch. Our 6th junior sister is still suppressing her cultivation for the strongest Emperor stage competition. She hasn't broken through to the Emperor realm yet. Next to you, Linfeng, a woman with a graceful figure, narrowed her eyes and smiled. This woman was Yu Shaoyin, Yu Linfeng's older sister and the third personal disciple of the Red Emperor. Yu Shaoyin was dressed in a long purple dress that was extremely eye-catching. Her figure was exquisite, and her posture was exquisite. If she were to walk outside, she would definitely become the center of attention. The 6th junior sister she spoke of was, of course, Yu Hanxin. In order to participate in the strongest Emperor stage competition and win the opportunity to compete with the geniuses from beyond the heavens, Yu Hanxin had chosen to suppress her cultivation realm. She was still in the late Emperor stage competition. If Long Yu really wanted to participate in the strongest Emperor stage competition, then he would definitely run into Yu Hanxin. One had to admit that the Red Emperor's personal disciples' guesses were quite accurate. After all, they were all geniuses. Even if they guessed that Long Yu wanted to participate in the strongest Emperor stage competition, they wouldn't be too surprised. But if this news were to spread out, it would most likely shock everyone. Participating in the strongest Emperor stage competition was something that had never happened before. Even if it had, it would be a complete joke. No one had ever obtained a good ranking in the strongest Emperor stage competition when they had just stepped into the Emperor realm. Most of them were eliminated in the first 2 rounds. If Long Yu really wanted to do this, then how high would he be able to rank in the strongest Emperor stage competition? If Long Yu said that he wanted to become the first in the strongest Emperor stage competition, then everyone would probably think that he was crazy and overestimating himself. But in reality, that was exactly what he wanted. After defeating Gu Feichen, everyone in the courtyard looked at Long Yu with a completely different gaze. If it was said that Long Yu had defeated his opponent in a single move, it was still understandable. However, now that he had defeated Gu Feichen in a single move, it was unbelievable. The move that Long Yu had used was the 9 Underworld Heavenly Light. After condensing the 9 Underworld Heavenly Light, he immediately activated the 9 Underworld Blades and attacked Gu Feichen from all directions. Gu Feichen discovered that the Divine Rune of Space had been blocked, and he couldn't dodge the blades. He tried to block them, but he discovered that his defensive methods were completely useless against the blades. In a hurry, he activated the king's life tablet to save his life and admitted defeat at the same time. If he had been 1 step slower, Gu Feichen would have died without a doubt. Chapter 880. As the competition continued, more and more people came to know about Long Yu and became very curious about his strength. This person always used one move against everyone. Would he end up first in the strongest King Realm competition? There had never been a situation like this in any of the strongest King Realm competitions. There were people who won all the way to the end, but to always finish off his opponent in one move? Never. Even the 5 emperors couldn't do this. Therefore, at this moment, over 1 million King Realm cultivators were paying close attention to Long Yu. If this person is allowed to grow, he will definitely be able to change the entire Shenwu world. As the 9th round began, there were only 500 people left in the competition. As the 10th round began, there were still 254 people left competing for the strongest king level position. As the 11th round began, there were 125 people left. As the 12th round began, there were only 64 people left. Almost half of the participants would be eliminated in each round. Long Yu continued to advance, and up until the 12th round, he still managed to finish off his opponents in one move. Coincidentally, Long Yu still hadn't met any of his friends, so he was quite lucky. But the others might not be so lucky. Shi Yingwu ran into Feng Xiaofei and directly defeated him. Then, Feng Xiaofei also lost to other strong cultivators in the next round and was eliminated in the 11th round. Man Xian and Qi Hua were both quite strong. One of them had the stormy demonic blade inheritance. The other had the divine script of heavenly fire, but their overall strength wasn't enough, so they were eliminated in the 10th round. And now, there were only a few people left beside Long Yu who managed to enter the 12th round like Long Yu. Shi Yingwu, Mo Zhaitian, Xu Chan, and the unexpected Feng Yu Xian. Feng Yu Xian received the Sufferer's Flute combat weapon from Long Yu, and she herself was quite talented, so she managed to make it all the way to the top 64. Other than these people, Long Yu's other friends had already been eliminated. In the end, their strength was still insufficient, and they needed more tempering. Even Gu Yixian, who had been in the top 64, had suffered 2 consecutive defeats and been eliminated. One of the people who had defeated Gu Yixian was impressively Heavenstar River. This person was an old acquaintance of Long Yu and Xu Chan. After the top 64, the rules would not change. The chances of encountering one's own people would increase significantly. At the same time, the chances of encountering the Heavenly Starry River would also increase significantly. Up until now, those powers that still wanted to take revenge against Long Yu had all given up, because it was utterly impossible to rely on King Realm cultivators to deal with Long Yu. It was even to the extent that Long Yu could casually defeat any King Realm expert with a single move. How could those forces take revenge? It was simply impossible. Long Yu used his absolute strength to crush those who wanted to take revenge on him, causing everyone to despair. Me and Mo Zhaitian. When the top 64 began, Xu Chan directly frowned. She didn't expect to encounter one of her own people. However, since everyone had one chance to forfeit in each round, Xu Chan chose to forfeit directly. She still had 3 chances to choose a new opponent. But next time, if she encountered one of her own people, her opponent would have to choose to forfeit, because everyone only had one chance to forfeit in each round. Forfeiting again was equivalent to admitting defeat, and it would be counted as a loss. Me and Heavenly Starry River. Long Yu squinted his eyes and revealed his opponent, attracting many people's attention. Good. Xu Chan and Mo Zhaitian's eyes suddenly lit up. For them, Heavenly Starry River had betrayed Shura Province and was their enemy. Now, they finally had a chance to fight against Heavenly Starry River. Moreover, it was a direct opponent of Long Yu. Finally, there was a good show to watch. Will Heavenly Starry River accept the challenge? Shi Yingwu asked curiously. I think so. He has been in a winning streak until now. He should be confident in his strength. Long Yu said. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he found that Heavenly Starry River had chosen to forfeit. He forfeited. Heavenly Starry River had chosen to forfeit against Long Yu. It showed that Heavenly Starry River was extremely afraid of Long Yu's strength. He didn't dare to fight against Long Yu. After all, it was too risky to fight against Long Yu. Once he lost, he would most likely be stuck in the top 64, which was not worth it for Heavenly Starry River. Many people were surprised by Heavenly Starry River's forfeit. It should be known that Heavenly Starry River had always been in a winning streak. Until now, there were less than 10 people who were still in a winning streak, and Heavenly Starry River was one of them. Such a strong person actually chose to forfeit against Long Yu. From this, it could be seen to what extent Long Yu's might had risen to. Then, the 10,000 layers space continued to arrange an opponent for Long Yu, but forfeit, forfeit, forfeit. More and more people were arranged to fight against Long Yu. However, Long Yu only received a lot of forfeits. No one was willing to fight against Long Yu. Not only was Long Yu dumbfounded, but the millions of spectators were also dumbfounded. Soon, it was Long Yu's turn to fight against Xu Chan. Xu Chan had forfeited once in this round. Long Yu took the initiative to forfeit. He didn't want to fight against his own people so early. At least, he wanted his people to reach a higher level in the strongest king's realm. Then, it was Shi Yangwu's turn to fight against Long Yu. Shi Yangwu forfeited Mo Xian forfeited. Fu Xian forfeited. After a while, all 64 people who entered the 12th round had gone through their rounds. No one dared to fight against Long Yu. Not a single one. The other 63 people, except for Shu Chan, all gave their chance to forfeit to Long Yu. Everyone didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In this way, the 10,000-layer space didn't arrange an opponent for Long Yu. They let him advance to the next round directly. If this was the case for this round, then the next round and the next 2 rounds would most likely be the same as well. In this way, Long Yu would be considered to have a bye. The impact of this would be that everyone else would have the opportunity to forfeit, leaving Long Yu with the opportunity to forfeit. Except for Long Yu, everyone else would fight against whoever they were arranged to. This situation had never happened before in all the previous Strongest King's Realm competitions. Even the 5 emperors, who only occasionally came to watch, were shocked. This boy, Long Yu, was actually so nature-defying. The Taiwu Empire's powerhouse, Gu Feichen, was still in the top 64. He had lost to Long Yu once before, but his own strength wasn't weak. He won 2 consecutive rounds and successfully advanced to the next round. In the top 64 battles, Gu Feichen was first arranged to fight against Long Yu. He refused without hesitation. Then, he was arranged to fight against Shi Yingwu. Gu Feichen didn't know much about Shi Yingwu. However, the other people from the Taiwu Empire reminded him, this woman's strength isn't bad. Although she's not as good as Long Yu, she's still quite powerful. Be careful when the battle starts. She's just a woman. She's just someone close to Long Yu. It's fine if I, Gu Feichen, can't beat Long Yu. If I can't even beat Shi Yingwu, how can I be considered a genius of the Taiwu Empire? Gu Feichen snorted coldly. The resentment of being defeated by Long Yu in one move, coupled with everything Long Yu had done to the Taiwu Empire, made him hate Long Yu to the extreme. Now that he had encountered Shi Yingwu, Gu Feichen was ready to go all out and defeat Shi Yingwu as quickly as possible. He wanted Long Yu to have a taste of his own people being defeated. It was a pity that Gu Feichen's thoughts were too beautiful. He was defeated by Long Yu in one move. Even if he faced the Death Envoy's direct disciple, Shi Yingwu, what could he gain? The battle only lasted for a short period of 10 breaths. Shi Yongwu's dance of death and death's assertion directly made Gu Feichen feel an endless threat of death. His timid and cautious personality made him activate the ruler's life token to save his life. However, Shi Yongwu's death's assertion had already been activated. Even though he had left the battle space, Gu Feichen's Dantian and meridians had already been eroded by the power of the divine rune of death. They were tainted with a trace of death aura, weakening his strength by more than half. What was more frightening was that no one in the entire Taiwu Empire knew how to get rid of this death aura. It was conceivable that Gu Feichen's strength would be greatly reduced from now on. It would be extremely difficult for him to win the next 2 matches in the top 64. As expected, Gu Feichen's opponent was Feng Yusen. Gu Feichen was filled with resentment and wanted to kill Feng Yusen. However, his body had been eroded by the divine rune of death. His strength had been reduced by at least half. Even when facing Feng Yusen, he was no longer a threat. Feng Yusen waved the sufferer's flute and played the death melody. The terrifying innate mystique once again awakened the power of the divine rune of death in Gu Feichen's body. Seeing that Gu Feichen was about to be completely killed by the divine rune of death, he activated the ruler's life token in fear and finally managed to suppress the death aura in his body. However, after being activated by Feng Yusen, his overall strength was greatly reduced again. He was only left with less than 20% of his peak strength. He could not even defeat an ordinary late king stage martial cultivator. Such an outcome was extremely painful for Gu Feichen. However, neither Shi Yingwu nor Feng Yusen showed any mercy to him. This was because the 2 women knew that the Taiwu Empire had once sent over 50 martial emperors to capture Long Yu. If it wasn't for Long Yu's strength, he would have been captured by the Taiwu Empire and would have suffered a fate worse than death. Therefore, the 2 women did not show any mercy to the genius from the Taiwu Empire, Gu Feichen. With the Taiwu Empire's means, it was impossible for them to save Gu Feichen. Moreover, the ruler's life token could only suppress the death aura in his body for a short period of time. Once the ruler's life token was gone, Gu Feichen would immediately die, unless Shi Yingwu personally helped him get rid of the death aura in his body. However, how was that possible? After the battles in the top 64, only the top 32 were left. Chapter 881. The Strongest King Realm competition was still going on. There were only 32 people left in the arena. At this point, every battle would be watched by millions of people at the same time. Many people had already made guesses as to who was the strongest and who was the weakest among the remaining 32. Without a doubt, most people thought that Long Yu would get first place, because no matter who he faced, Long Yu would always defeat his opponents in one move. Even until the last round, no one dared to fight against Long Yu. Everyone else chose to forfeit. This was indeed a situation that had never happened in the previous Strongest King Realm competitions. Long Yu would advance to the next round without a doubt. However, what Long Yu was more concerned about now was how far the others could go. He was more looking forward to Sunset Dance making it to the finals and meeting him. If that was the case, he would give up the position of the Strongest King Realm to her. The biggest reward for the first place of the Strongest King Realm was the chance to train with the Outer Sky Geniuses. Long Yu really needed this. But this wasn't the only way to get this chance. The top 10 of the Strongest King Realm competition all had this chance. So Long Yu would definitely participate in the Strongest King Realm competition. Then giving the first place of the Strongest King Realm to his own people wouldn't be a big deal. Probably no one would have thought that Long Yu had this kind of idea. After giving up the first place of the Strongest King Realm, he would immediately participate in the Strongest King Realm competition and get into the top 10. This was a bit ridiculous. After all, which one of the top 10 Strongest King Realm cultivators weren't the strongest in Shenwu world? Even if Long Yu was the first place of the Strongest King Realm, after breaking through, it would still be extremely difficult for him to get into the top 10 Strongest King Realm. Not to mention top 10, even top 1,000 wouldn't be that easy. Shi Yingwu didn't disappoint Long Yu. Very quickly, she won 2 battles and advanced to the next round. It was a pity that Fengyu Xin had reached her limit. She was unlucky to be matched against Mo Jian. Both of them had given Long Yu the chance to forfeit. Therefore, the battle had to continue. Fengyu Xin was not allowed to forfeit. Under such circumstances, neither of them would hold back. Fengyu Xin had the Sufferer's Flute, an ancient upper-rank combat weapon, but so did Mo Jian. In other aspects, Mo Jian was better than Fengyu Xin. After all, he had reached the King Realm much earlier than Fengyu Xin. Therefore, he was better at controlling his strength and observing the details of the battle. In the end, Fengyu Xin lost, and Mo Jian won. Then, Fengyu Xin was arranged to fight against another genius from the Empire. He was from the crazy Immortal Empire, one of the 6 sects and 10 countries. He was extremely powerful. Not only was King Realm, but also Fengyu King Realm. Such an expert could easily deal with a middle-stage Emperor Realm opponent. In fact, he might even be able to defeat a middle-stage Emperor Realm opponent. This was the standard of the top 10 Strongest King Realm cultivators. Other than Shi Yingwu, no one beside Long Yu dared to say that they could win against him. That was how powerful he was. Fengyu Xin didn't lose to him. But after losing 2 battles in a row, Fengyu Xin finally stopped in the top 32 and was eliminated in this round. During this time, Long Yu paid attention to the battles of Heavenly Star River. He was surprised to find that Heavenly Star River was not any weaker than the genius from the crazy Immortal Empire. Heavenly Star River must have had many fortuitous encounters in recent years. But it's a pity that his remark didn't say where he came from. I still don't know much about him. Long Yu frowned. He wasn't afraid of Heavenly Star River. In fact, the battles of the Strongest King Realm cultivators were outdated for him. He had already defeated a late King Realm opponent 2 years ago. He was worried that other people besides Shi Yingwu would not have a high chance of winning if they encountered Heavenly Star River. After this round, Only 16 top geniuses were left in the field. The others were eliminated, including Fenyu Xian. Other than Shi Yingwu, only Mo Jiayin and Shu Chan were left beside Long Yu. When there were only 16 people left, the rules of the competition changed. It was no longer 3 battles for each person. The winner would be determined by 1 battle, and the loser would be eliminated. At this point, no one had the chance to forfeit. You could only fight against whoever the 10,000-layer space arranged as your opponent. At this time, the battles of the strongest king realm were coming to an end. It had taken a month. Long Yu glanced at the information in his king's life plate and found that his opponent was a genius disciple from one of the 6 sects and 10 countries. His strength could definitely enter the top 10. However, Long Yu didn't care about it at all. Instead, he paid attention to the arrangements of the others. Xiao Wu, who are you fighting against? Shi Yingwu glanced at it. The genius from the crazed, immortal empire. You should be fine. On the side, Mo Jiayin and Shu Chan were also arranged to fight. Their opponents were also genius disciples from the 6 sects and 10 countries. For the 2 of them, this battle was the most important, and they couldn't afford to lose. At this moment, almost all 16 people had the ability to challenge those with higher cultivation levels. At the very least, they could defeat early-stage Emperor Realm cultivators. These 16 people were the strongest King Realm cultivators in the entire Shenwu world. Among them, 4 of them belonged to the forces that Long Yu was in. Many people were shocked. If these 4 could continue to develop, they would eventually replace the 6 sects and 10 countries in the Shenwu world. There had never been a time when 4 of the top 16 were from the same force in the strongest King Realm competition. The battle began. It was Long Yu's turn first. Everyone was looking forward to seeing Long Yu's true strength. Before this, Long Yu had always defeated his opponents in 1 move, but that was only because his opponents were too weak. Now, his opponent was a young genius from the 6 sects and 10 countries. This person could even fight against a middle-stage Emperor Realm cultivator. Then, would Long Yu be able to defeat him in 1 move? Most people thought that it was impossible. Although Long Yu could defeat this person, he wouldn't be able to do it in 1 move. Long Yu was teleported into a forest by the spatial divine rune. This forest was surprisingly equipped with a flight restriction formation. In other words, no one could fly in this place and could only fight in the forest. Spatial penetration. Long Yu raised his hand, and a nether void dragon blade flew out, piercing into the trunk of a large tree in the forest. However, he discovered that even the spatial piercing blade was unable to pierce through this tree. One could well imagine that this forest was practically indestructible to King Realm cultivators. In order to knock down these trees, one would need the destructive power of a late-stage Emperor Realm cultivator. Long Yu could do it now, but he didn't need to do so. He only needed to defeat his opponent. He used Shadow Eye and immediately found his opponent's location. This time, he didn't hide himself, so his opponent also noticed him and ran towards him. Obviously, this person didn't want to admit defeat. He wanted to see just how strong Long Yu was. After all, he had the King Realm medallion, so his life wouldn't be in danger no matter what. The 2 of them soon met. Without any words exchanged, the moment they met, it was a battle. The person raised his hand. A sword aura that was a mixture of ice and fire slashed towards Long Yu with shocking power. The sword aura that was a mixture of ice and fire was extremely terrifying. Dodge or defend? The spirits of all the spectators were instantly aroused. They wanted to see how Long Yu would deal with such a formidable attack. The corners of Long Yu's mouth curled up slightly when facing this sword aura. Such an attack wasn't a threat to him at all. His Death Realm physique refinement had improved by 3 levels in the last year, and he'd stepped into perfection. Merely the strength of his body far surpassed ordinary Emperor Realm cultivators. Even if he didn't dodge, this sword aura wouldn't be able to harm him at all. However, Long Yu naturally wouldn't expose the strength of his body so early. After all, it was a trump card that he needed to utilize when he participated in the Emperor Realm competition. Long Yu's figure flashed, and he immediately executed the ninth hell path to break through the spatial seal and avoid this attack. After that, another wave of ninth hell divine radiance appeared and enveloped his opponent. In the next moment, the glow of the King Realm medallion appeared, and that disciple admitted defeat once more. It was still a single move. All the spectators were instantly stupefied. Just how strong was Long Yu? Even when facing such a powerful opponent, he only needed a single move to finish him off. Even an ordinary advanced stage Emperor Realm expert wouldn't be able to defeat him with a single move, right? However, this couldn't be any more normal for Long Yu. Even though his comprehension of the ninth hell divine radiance hadn't improved by much, his affinity with the shadow attribute divine scriptures had far surpassed what it was a year ago. Now, his affinity with the shadow attribute divine scriptures had attained the 10th level. There was more than just the 9th level of affinity with the shadow attribute divine scriptures. After the 9th level, there was an even higher level, the 10th level. The emissary of death had said that the cultivators from beyond the heavens called the 10th level of affinity with the shadow attribute divine scriptures. Once one attained this level of affinity, not only would one be able to utilize the energy of the shadow attribute divine scriptures perfectly, one would even be able to greatly improve the strength of the shadow attribute divine scriptures. Simply speaking, once one's affinity with the shadow attribute divine scriptures attained the 10th level, then the might of the divine scriptures would be 2 or 3 times stronger than when one was at the 9th level. Very few people were able to attain the 10th level of affinity even in the outer world. Long Yu hadn't been able to attain the 10th level of affinity even after consuming those pills. However, he'd coincidentally entered into a state of sudden enlightenment while cultivating, and he'd attained the 10th level of affinity with the shadow attribute divine scriptures. Moreover, Long Yu had relied on the technique that the Death Envoy had taught him to seal a few tens of thousands of Ice God Clan beasts within his inner world. At this moment, the strength of Long Yu's inner world was 2 times stronger than an ordinary King Realm cultivator. All of these factors combined had created an extraordinarily crushing strength for Long Yu in the King Realm. In this way, his strength would obtain the greatest improvement, and he would only need to execute a single move against an opponent at the same cultivation realm. It was impossible for a King Realm cultivator to withstand the 9 Hell blade attack of the 9th Hell Heavenly Radiance alone. In the face of Long Yu's attack, they couldn't dodge it, and they couldn't block it either. They could only die or admit defeat. With this victory, Long Yu advanced directly to the top 8. Chapter 882. Shu Chan's opponent was a genius from the frenzied Immortal Empire. Their combat strength was similar, but Shu Chan was slightly weaker. After all, the frenzied Immortal Empire had a lot of cultivation resources. In addition, the genius was a genius from the frenzied Immortal Empire. His master was also a peak Emperor Realm expert from the frenzied Immortal Empire. It was not difficult to understand why his cultivation was higher than Shu Chan's. However, Shu Chan gained the upper hand right from the start. There was only one reason for this. Shu Chan was extremely experienced in fighting. She even had the experience of fighting those at a higher level than her. Among them, the sparring session with Long Yu helped Shu Chan the most. Every time she sparred with Long Yu, she would improve a lot. She had even experienced many life and death situations, so she had a deep understanding of fighting. The genius from the frenzied Immortal Empire was slightly weaker in terms of fighting. After all, he did not have enough fighting experience. When he was fighting against Shu Chan, he could not defend himself properly, which led to him being at a disadvantage at the beginning. Long Yu was surprised by Shu Chan's performance. As the battle went on, the advantage he had at the beginning was magnified by Shu Chan. In the end, the genius from the frenzied Immortal Empire could not hold on any longer and could only admit defeat. Shu Chan won and entered the top 8. On the other side, Emo Zhaiqian was not so lucky. His opponent was also an expert from the 6 sects and 10 countries. However, this expert was stronger than the genius from the frenzied Immortal Empire. He had reached level 7 synchronization with the space divine rune. Although Mo Jian was strong, his synchronization with the shadow attribute divine rune had only reached level 6. Although he was only one level away from his opponent, the gap between them was huge. After half an hour of fighting, Mo Jian finally lost and did not enter the top 8. Then it was Shi Yongwu's turn. Shi Yongwu's opponent was a young genius from the Alliance of 5 Emperors. Up to now, in the top 16, 4 were from Long Yu's side, 4 were from the Alliance of 5 Emperors, 1 was from Tianxing River, and the other 7 were all geniuses from the 6 sects and 10 countries. Right now, Shi Yongwu was facing off against a genius from the Alliance of 5 Emperors. Although the divine rune of death was extremely powerful, the opponent had also comprehended the divine rune of ice at the origin level. In this aspect, he was actually evenly matched with Shi Yongwu. Unfortunately, Shi Yongwu was a disciple of the Envoy of Death. Not only did she cultivate the supreme Archean martial skill, the Dance of Death, but she also cultivated many other supreme Archean and supreme martial skills. Moreover, Shi Yongwu did not even need to use her divine skills. She could completely suppress her opponent with these martial skills alone. Without a doubt, compared to Xu Chan and Mo Jian, Shi Yongwu was much stronger. In less than half an hour, she defeated her opponent easily and entered the top 8. Long Yu then paid attention to the Battle of Tianxing River. He found that this person's strength was similar to that of the geniuses from the 6 sects and 10 countries. However, he was slightly stronger. In the end, he defeated a king-level expert from the Alliance of 5 Emperors and entered the top 8. In just one day, the top 8 were decided. Long Yu, Shi Yongwu, Xu Chan, and Tianxing River took up 4 of the spots. Among the other 4 spots, there were 2 experts from the Alliance of 5 Emperors and 2 experts from the 6 sects and 10 countries. After the top 8, the battles would definitely be more intense. The millions of spectators were also excited. This month-long King Realm competition had finally reached its final stage. According to the rules, the 10,000 Layers realm quickly arranged opponents for the 8 of them. Long Yu against the genius of the Water Moon Sword sect, Yin Yin Yao. Shi Yongwu against Tianxing River. Xu Chan against a genius from the Alliance of 5 Emperors. The last genius from the Alliance of 5 Emperors against a young genius from the Dongmen Empire, one of the 6 sects and 10 countries. Although the King Realm competition didn't care about age, there was no doubt that the strongest experts were the younger geniuses. Therefore, this power was a mixed sword technique with terrifying lethality. However, in the next moment, Yin Yinyao's expression changed. She felt that the sword chi that she released first had been shattered by the 9 underworld's dragon breath. Then, the 9 underworld's dragon breath broke through the void and appeared at the place where she appeared, shrouding over her. Sword Dance Shield. Yin Yinyao couldn't dodge in time and could only cast a defensive skill. The sword chi danced and formed a sword shield, trying to block the 9 underworld's dragon breath. Unfortunately, she was in despair the next moment. In just one move, her sword dance shield was completely shattered by the 9 underworld's dragon breath. She could feel that the power in the 9 underworld's dragon breath was definitely beyond ordinary innate skills. King Dao, you've actually comprehended the innate skills into King Dao. Yin Yinyao's expression changed drastically. Only now did she realize how wide the gap between her and Long Yu was. Long Yu's skill had already evolved into the King Dao level. This was something that only the talented Emperor Realm experts could comprehend under normal circumstances. The King Life token shone brightly, and Yin Yinyao immediately activated it to save her life. At the same time, she admitted defeat. If she was any later, she would have been devoured by the 9 underworld's dragon breath. Even after activating the King Life token's defensive barrier, the 9 underworld's dragon breath still devoured Yin Yinyao. 1% of the King Life token's defensive barrier was corroded away. Before Yin Yinyao was teleported out, she saw the King Life token's defensive barrier being corroded away by the 9 underworld's dragon breath. One had to know that the defensive barrier of the King's Life Medallion could withstand the attack of a late-stage Emperor Realm expert. In other words, Long Yu's King's Life Medallion was 1% as powerful as a late-stage Emperor Realm expert. This made Yin Yinyao's face turn ashen. She knew that it was impossible for her to avenge senior brother Zheng En. Long Yu's strength had far surpassed her. He only needed one move to deal with her. After defeating Yin Yinyao, Long Yu became one of the top 4. The next battle was between Shi Yingwu and Tian Xinghe. In truth, Tian Xinghe didn't care much about the others around Long Yu. He planned to fight Long Yu in the finals. Therefore, he gave a chance to forfeit to Long Yu. He didn't want to meet Long Yu in advance. Tian Xinghe didn't think that he wasn't a match for Long Yu. Therefore, he didn't think much of the others around Long Yu, especially Shi Yingwu. She was just a 16 or 17-year-old girl. How strong could she be? However, when he started fighting with Shi Yingwu, he realized that he had completely underestimated her. Shi Yingwu used all kinds of transcendent and supreme rank ancient martial skills. The aura of death enveloped the entire arena and completely suppressed Tian Xinghe. Tian Xinghe used all his means and even took out a transcendent ancient martial skill that had reached the Tianqi level. But in the end, he still couldn't defeat Shi Yingwu. Instead, he was suppressed by Shi Yingwu. After the time it took for a joss stick to burn, Tian Xinghe could only helplessly admit defeat. Shi Yingwu was too strong. One had to know that she had been personally taught by the Death Envoy for a year. He taught her many techniques. How hard could it be to deal with a mere Tian Xinghe? Tian Xinghe's master was the big-eared old man. Although he was as strong as the 5 emperors, compared to the Death Envoy, they were worlds apart. There was no way to compare them. In the following battle, Shu Chan was defeated. Her opponent was a genius from the alliance of 5 emperors. It was said that this person had reached the 19th level of the fantasy world of the 5 emperors. His strength was terrifying. His master was one of the cabinet elders of the alliance of 5 emperors. It was normal for Shu Chan to lose to this person. On the other side, the people from the 6 sects and 10 countries won and became one of the top 4. Chapter 883. When it came to the top 4, the overall situation of the strongest King Realm competition was very clear. Long Yu, who defeated everyone in one move, was definitely the strongest contender for first place. There had never been a situation like this in any of the strongest King Realm competitions. In the countless previous strongest King Realm competitions, everyone was evenly matched in the end, and it was difficult for others to predict who would be first place. Except for this time, Long Yu's performance from beginning to end had shocked everyone. However, there were still people who disdained Long Yu, because Long Yu was the Red Emperor's direct disciple. How could anyone else be compared to him? As the Red Emperor's direct disciple, he was only at the late stage of the King Realm. It was simply a disgrace to the Red Emperor. Many people thought so, but they still disdained Long Yu. Regarding this, Long Yu of course didn't care. There were many people who looked down on him, but in the end, Long Yu always used his own strength to slap everyone's face. When there were only the top 4 left, Long Yu was still a bit nervous. If he and Shi Yingwu met first, would he be able to defeat Shi Yingwu? Defeating Shi Yingwu was a certainty. Long Yu and Shi Yingwu had sparred many times before. Shi Yingwu wasn't Long Yu's opponent, but if that was the case, then Shi Yingwu wouldn't get the chance to go with the Grandmasters to one of the 7 great forbidden areas of Shunwu World. Fortunately, the distribution of the battles was quickly announced. Long Yu against the genius of the alliance of 5 emperors, Shi Yingwu against the genius of the 6 sects and 10 countries. The two didn't meet each other early, so Long Yu was very relieved. He and Shi Yingwu would definitely be able to defeat their opponents and enter the finals. To deal with the genius of the alliance of 5 emperors, it wasn't that Long Yu was arrogant and conceited, but that he had the strength to do so. This genius from the alliance of 5 emperors had also stepped onto the 19th level of the 5 emperors' illusory realm. However, this was only the strength of Lan Shuyan from a year ago. Furthermore, Lan Shuyan had yet to enter the emperor realm. How could Long Yu lose to such an opponent? As for Shi Yingwu, Long Yu didn't need to worry. With the guidance of the Death Messenger, if Shi Yingwu were to challenge the fantasy world of the Five Emperors, it was very likely that she could also set foot on the 30th floor. She wouldn't lose to Long Yu in the past. It was simply too easy for her to deal with a late-stage King Realm genius from the 6 sects and 10 nations. Within the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Shi Yingwu defeated her opponent and entered the finals. As for Long Yu, he defeated his opponent with the dragon breath of the 9 underworlds, shocking everyone once again. The millions of martial experts within the 10,000-layer space simply couldn't believe what they were seeing. This Long Yu had actually defeated his opponent in a single move all the way to the semifinals. Exactly how strong was his true strength? This Long Yu would definitely be number 1. Everyone thought so, and no one doubted it. However, the truth was beyond everyone's expectations. When the finals began, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu were teleported to the battlefield. What happened next was that Long Yu directly activated the King Life token. Admit defeat. Long Yu admitted defeat. The millions of martial cultivators in the entire 10,000 levels were dumbfounded. Long Yu, the well-deserved number 1 in the strongest King Realm competition, actually admitted defeat? Was this because Shi Yingwu was Long Yu's friend? But that didn't make sense. Everyone knew how many rewards the champion of the strongest King Realm would receive. Other than a chance to greatly increase one's strength, there was also a total of 100 million Shinbi worth of cultivation resources. The resources were a small matter, but the key was the opportunity. Although most people didn't know what the opportunity of the strongest King Realm was, every time the first place of the strongest King Realm would have a great increase in strength. Obviously, it was because of the opportunity rewarded by the first place of the strongest King Realm. Of course, Long Yu knew that the opportunity was to go to one of the Shunwu world's 7 great forbidden areas with the Beyond Heavens geniuses to increase the strength of his inner world. But this wasn't something that everyone knew. In fact, even within the Alliance of 5 Emperors, only the core members of the Alliance of 5 Emperors knew about this. At the very least, only the elders at the peak of Emperor Realm were qualified to know about this. But this didn't stop others from attaching importance to the title of the strongest King Realm champion. Just this title alone was enough for a normal person. It was an honor that could accompany a martial cultivator for the rest of their lives. But this honor and reward was given away by Long Yu to his friend, Shi Yingwu. Were Long Yu and Shi Yingwu really just friends? Many people began to speculate. Very quickly, some even guessed that Shi Yingwu was Long Yu's woman. As for what the actual truth was, it wasn't something that these people could guess. It wasn't until 7 days later, when the strongest Emperor Realm competition also began, that everyone finally understood Long Yu's true intentions. This guy wanted to give the title of strongest King Realm champion to one of his own, and then fight for the top 10 of the strongest Emperor Realm himself. Top 10. Everyone could only think this way. After all, no one believed that Long Yu could become the strongest Emperor Realm champion. After all, it was impossible for Long Yu to step into the late stage of Emperor Realm in 7 days. One realm was a whole new level. The difference was huge. How could Long Yu, who was only at the late stage of Emperor Realm, become the strongest Emperor Realm in 7 days? Everyone felt that this could only be nonsense. Therefore, when the time came, they would only think that Long Yu was aiming for the top 10. After all, the top 10 of the strongest Emperor Realm competition also had the chance to become the strongest King Realm champion. Of course, this was something that would happen 7 days later. Now, after Long Yu admitted defeat and gave the title of strongest King Realm champion to Shi Yingwu, he immediately received the many rewards that the 5 emperors had sent over through the myriad layer space. He was the second prize and received a total of 80 million Shinbi worth of cultivation resources. Shi Yingwu was the first and received a total of 120 million Shinbi worth of cultivation resources. With regard to this, Long Yu had a plan in mind. Xiao Wu, give me all of your 120 million Shinbi. I will go to the alliance of 5 emperors to exchange for some things. Long Yu said directly to Shi Yingwu. Shi Yingwu agreed without hesitation. Shi Yingwu didn't care much about money. Although these were all cultivation resources, she didn't lack ordinary cultivation resources. Since Long Yu needed them, she would give them a Long Yu. Apart from these two prizes, Shu Chan, Mo Zhaiqian, and the others also received a lot of cultivation resources due to their high ranking. In addition to the 200 million Shinbi that Long Yu and Shi Yingwu received, the others received 50 million Shinbi worth of cultivation resources. It was a pretty good harvest. Normally, it would take a long time to get these resources. After receiving the 120 million Shinbi from Shi Yingwu, Long Yu activated the king's life plate and left the 10,000 layer space. He headed to the alliance of 5 emperors to exchange for 2,000 first-grade divine runic crystals. A year ago, Long Yu had swept away all the divine runic crystals in the alliance of 5 emperors, so they must have a lot of them by now. Long Yu prepared 200 million Shinbi worth of cultivation resources. If he exchanged them for 2,000 divine runic crystals, he would finally have 10,000 divine runic crystals, which would be enough to repair the ancient dragon skeleton tower and turn it into a top-tier Archean combat weapon. This way, Long Yu's strength would be further enhanced. This was an important part of his quest to become the strongest Emperor Realm expert. Everyone thought that it was impossible for Long Yu to become the strongest Emperor Realm expert, but in Long Yu's eyes, nothing was impossible. After all, he had obtained the inheritance of the Joyo Dragon Emperor. This inheritance definitely surpassed everyone else in the Divine Battle Realm. Unless he encountered a genius from beyond the heavens, Long Yu is absolutely invincible among those in the same realm. It was not impossible for him to become the strongest Emperor Realm expert. However, in order to participate in the Emperor Realm competition, Long Yu had to step into the Emperor Realm within these 7 days of rest. Time was still rather tight, so he left immediately after the King Realm competition ended. He had to return to the Azura Ancient Palace and prepare to absorb the power of the endless great elixirs to break into the Emperor Realm. The 4 endless great elixirs were what Long Yu relied on to break into the Emperor Realm. With the existence of these 4 heaven-defying elixirs, it was enough to make what everyone thought was impossible possible. Long Yu left, but the courtyard where the people of the Heavenly Mandate Manor were in was filled with joy. The people of the Heavenly Mandate Manor could be said to have won the competition of the strongest King Realm, and the harvest was extremely rich. As the strongest King Realm expert, Shi Yingwu would also be personally received by the 5 emperors, and she would have the right to choose some ancient martial arts techniques to cultivate. Ancient martial arts techniques were not rare to Shi Yingwu, but to the people of the Heavenly Mandate Manor, they were absolute treasures. Of course, ancient martial arts techniques were extremely difficult to cultivate. Even if ordinary martial arts cultivators obtained the cultivation method of ancient martial arts techniques, it would be difficult for them to cultivate in a short period of time. But of course, it was better than nothing. At least it gave some talented martial arts cultivators some opportunities. However, when Shi Yingwu went to meet the 5 emperors and choose some ancient martial arts techniques, the courtyard welcomed a group of unexpected guests. In fact, after Shi Yingwu won first place, there were many guests who wanted to visit the Heavenly Mandate Manor, but they were all rejected by Yu Hanxin. But now, this group of people, the corners of Yu Hanxin's mouth curled up slightly, and she let them in. This group of people was from the Taiwu Empire. An old man in the late stage of the Imperial Realm from the Taiwu Empire came to the courtyard of the Heavenly Mandate Manor with 4 middle-aged martial arts cultivators in the Martial Emperor Realm and several young men carrying a stretcher. The person on the stretcher was the genius of the Taiwu Empire who had been crippled by the death assertion, Gu Feichen. Now, Gu Feichen's entire body was corroded by the divine runes of death, and he was barely alive. The Taiwu Empire had consulted many cultivators from other forces, but they could not find any way to cure Gu Feichen. They had no choice but to carry him here. After all, whoever started the trouble must end it. Chapter 884. Everyone in the courtyard of the Heavenly Mandate Manor laughed when they saw the people from the Taiwu Empire bringing the seriously injured and dying Gu Feichen over. In fact, Shi Yingwu had done this on purpose. She did not directly use the death assertion when dealing with others, but against Gu Feichen, the so-called super genius of the Taiwu Empire, she directly used the cruelest method. The Taiwu Empire had sent dozens of martial emperor powerhouses to capture Long Yu. If it were not for Long Yu's tricks, he would have been captured by them by now, and no one knew what kind of torture he would be subjected to. It was normal for Shi Yingwu to want to avenge Long Yu. Now that the people from the Taiwu Empire had brought Gu Feichen over, Shi Yingwu appeared with Yuhan Xin and the others. "Where is Long Yu?" The elder from the Taiwu Empire walked at the front. His whole body was awe-inspiring and dignified. He was obviously the leader sent by the Taiwu Empire. "Brother Long is not here. Is there anything wrong?" Shi Yingwu glanced at the white-haired elder and said indifferently, "Let him come out and talk to me." The white-haired elder saw Shi Yingwu at first glance, but he put on airs and did not take Shi Yingwu seriously at all. "If there's anything, I can make the decision." Shi Yingwu laughed. This old man was obviously here to ask her to save Gu Feichen. She did not expect him to put on an act. It was ridiculous. The white-haired elder frowned slightly when he heard Shi Yingwu say this, but he still said, "Gu Feichen is not at the top of the younger generation of the Taiwu Empire, but his talent is not bad. Now that he is in such a state, do you have any way to save him? Even if there is, why should I save him?" Shi Yingwu felt that this old man's words were really annoying. He was obviously here to ask for help, but his attitude was so arrogant. She became even more impatient. "The Taiwu Empire can make a deal with you," the white-haired elder said indifferently. "What do you think you can give me?" Shi Yingwu asked. "Exchanging 10 million divine coins for Gu Feichen's life should be a piece of cake for you," the white-haired old man said proudly. 10 million? Are you trying to dismiss a beggar?" Shi Yingwu was surprised. She had wanted to see what the other party could offer, but she didn't expect that the other party would only offer 10 million Shinbi. One had to know that the reward for the first place in the strongest king realm was 120 million Shinbi worth of cultivation resources. 300 million. If you can't take it out, then please leave. Shi Yingwu chuckled. She really did not have a good impression of the Taiwu Empire. Since the other party wanted to make a deal, she would definitely seize the opportunity to earn a large sum of money from them. If the other party didn't accept it, then she had nothing to lose, so why not? Upon hearing Shi Yongwu's words, the white-haired old man was instantly enraged. "You're demanding an exorbitant price. 300 million? Are you dreaming?" "You're dreaming." "I'm not dreaming." Shi Yongwu's expression turned cold. "I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't decide to accept, then please leave. 1, 2. She didn't give the other party any time to consider. It was ridiculous. The initiative was clearly in her hands, but the Taiwu Empire's old man was still acting all high and mighty. It was simply disgusting. Of course, Shi Yingwu wouldn't give the other party any face and immediately started counting. When the white-haired old man heard Shi Yingwu start counting, his expression suddenly changed. "Ignorant junior, don't you know how powerful the Taiwu Empire is? How dare you offend us like this? It's quite powerful. You sent 50 martial emperors to hunt down Brother Long, but in the end, they were all trapped in the ancient ruins." Shi Yingwu sneered. "The current strength of the Taiwu Empire must be much weaker than the other 6 sects and 9 nations, yet you still want to threaten us? All right, 3 breaths of time has passed. You can go back. I won't send you off." As soon as Shi Yingwu finished speaking, she raised her hand and prepared to activate the King's Life Medallion to send the other party back. The white-haired old man panicked and hurriedly said, 300 million, 300 million, I accept." He had come with a mission. If Gu Feichen couldn't recover, he would definitely be punished when he returned. He originally wanted a bargain with Long Yu, but he didn't expect to meet a completely unreasonable person like Shi Yingwu. 300 million was actually still within his acceptable range. After all, Gu Feichen was currently the strongest young genius in the imperial realm of the Taiwu Empire. He would soon step into the emperor stage and would definitely become a martial emperor in the future. Paying 300 million Shinbi to save a future martial emperor was definitely worth it. Not to mention that Gu Feichen was the disciple of an elder of the Taiwu Empire. His identity was also very frightening. Except now, it's too late. Shi Yingwu looked at the white-haired old man like he was an idiot and said indifferently, "If you still want to save him now, I'll only do it if you give me 500 million. You're crazy." When the white-haired old man heard that Shi Yingwu had increased the price again, his expression immediately became extremely ugly. 300 million. No more. Do you think I'm negotiating with you? Shi Yingwu said bluntly. If you don't accept my conditions, then take your people and leave. I'll still count to 3. Then, Shi Yingwu began to count again. The white-haired old man and the many people from the Taiwu Empire were stunned. They didn't expect this girl to be so crazy as to offer 500 million. If 300 million was acceptable, then 500 million was already a number that exceeded their expectations. You have to think carefully. Not only will you earn a lot with 300 million, but you can also make friends with the Taiwu Empire. The old man said in a low voice, if you insist on asking for 500 million, not only will you not get any benefits, but you will also become enemies with the Taiwu Empire. After listening to the old man's words, Shi Yingwu was completely unmoved. She looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot, then continued to count 2. As long as she counted to 3, she would not hesitate to send all of them away. Did he really think that she would care about 300 to 500 million Shinbi? She had seen how easily Long Yu consumed archaic level, transcendent grade, and top grade pills. Each of those pills was definitely worth more than 1 billion Shinbi. As for making friends with the Taiwu Empire, it was even less attractive to Shi Yingwu. In any case, the Taiwu Empire was going to be destroyed sooner or later. So what was the point of making friends with them? Moreover, Shi Yingwu didn't think it was possible for her to make friends with the Taiwu Empire. Seeing that Shi Yingwu was so determined, the white-haired old man's face became extremely gloomy. He almost gnashed his teeth and said, 500 million it is. Deal. If they were not in the 10,000 layers of space, the white-haired old man would have been so angry that he would have attacked her directly. But now, he knew that even if he did, it would be useless. As long as Shi Yingwu willed it, she could send all the people of the Taiwu Empire away. The people of the Heavenly Mandate Manor stood behind Shi Yingwu. When they saw Shi Yingwu and the old man from the Taiwu Empire offer such a high price, they were all stunned on the spot. This was a big shock to them. They had never seen such a domineering side of Shi Yingwu. In the past, Shi Yingwu had always been a little girl. Although she had shown a lot of martial arts talent, it was still not very eye-catching. But now, Shi Yingwu's strength had become the strongest by Long Yu's side. Moreover, her personality was much more masculine than before. She was not the least bit afraid when facing the Taiwu Empire. She even threw away 300 million Shinbi like it was a pair of worn-out shoes. It was precisely because of this that the Taiwu Empire was willing to pay the price of 500 million Shinbi. It was so painful that it bled. For Sunset Dance, saving Gu Feichen was a piece of cake. With a wave of her hand, she dispelled the divine runes of death inside his body. The death chi condensed from the divine runes of death couldn't be dispelled by anyone else in the entire Shenwu world, unless the Envoy of Death personally did it. But why would the Envoy of Death save a mere Gu Feichen? Shi Yingwu casually waved her hand and earned 500 million Shinbi in assets. This was an extremely large number even for the Taiwu Empire, and it could be said that they had suffered a heavy loss. Forces like the Heavenly Mandate Manor and the Azura Manor could finally use these 500 million Shinbi to quickly rise up. With these 500 million Shinbi, if they used all of it to purchase cultivation resources, it would definitely increase the cultivation speed of everyone in the entire force by several times. To Shi Yingwu, 500 million Shinbi was not very useful, but to others, it was extremely precious. While Shi Yingwu was negotiating with the Taiwu Empire's elder, Long Yu had already returned to the Azura ancient palace outside, the holy city of the five emperors, and was preparing to consume the four endless great elixirs. He had just exchanged for 2,000 first-class divine characters crystals from the alliance of five emperors. After investing 200 million worth of cultivation resources, he finally had 10,000 first-class divine characters crystals. A year ago, he had over 9,000 crystals, but during his cultivation period, he had converted some of them and completely comprehended the divine characters of Death and Azura. In total, he had used up over 1,500 crystals, leaving him with only 8,000 left. With the addition of the 2,000 divine characters crystals, he had exactly 10,000 crystals. He could further repair the ancient dragon skeleton tower and turn it into a top-tier Archean combat weapon. In the divine battle world, top-tier Archean combat weapons were extremely rare. As for Archean combat weapons, even if they were just low-tier combat weapons, it was almost impossible for them to appear. In any case, it was impossible for a junior to have one. Even if someone had obtained an Archean combat weapon from an ancient relic, it was definitely in the hands of an Emperor Realm expert. No matter how noble a junior was, it was impossible for an Archean combat weapon to be in the hands of junior. What if it was snatched away by someone else? Break through to the Emperor Realm, repair the ancient tower. In the next 7 days, Long Yu would do these two things. Of course, the first was to attempt to break through to the Emperor Realm. When he stepped into the late-stage King Realm, Long Yu merged the true spirit of the Dragon of the Nine Underworlds into his inner world, giving birth to the power of origin. He also used a special method taught by the Envoy of Death to seal tens of thousands of Ice God Clan beasts in his inner world, strengthening the power of his inner world by 2 or 3 times. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.